Afternoon all. That's right. We're going a little bit earlier this week to sort with our very busy social schedules. Danny's got a little soiree that he's going to a little bit later. But let's just see if we can find out how he is. Danny, did you enjoy the Manchester United game at the weekend?
Silence.
that was actually really good. Very, very impressive there. There we are. We'll call him Danny Emery. But yeah, aside from that though, I've already seen the points dribbling this week, and there are things for Danny to be happy about, so it's not all bad. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether everyone's had a nice time game week 1, whether all your plans went to shiz. Who knows? Let's have a look and say hello to a few people in just a minute who are joining us in this late afternoon. Helen, wow, this is early. Yeah, I think Mrs. Rich has said that every now and again. To be honest, sorry, we can't make that kind of joke, can I? None of that. NX Craig's already popped in with a question. JP, oh no, it's not a question. It's just a bold statement. JP, best captain this week, that sort of thing. And other people who are clearly knocking off work early, unacceptably. So don't do that. Don't get in trouble on our behalves. Hello, BB Defender. Hello, everybody else. I'm 1974 or Ian. Very good. Actually, that reminds me, I need to quickly look up in a minute, see if there's any new sort of sign-ups that I should shout out and that sort of thing, and probably get it horribly wrong. If I do forget anyone, then that's okay. I will make sure to do it on the following pod. But yes, it's I know that we've been doing rather well on that score, so I'll give them a shout out a bit later. But just generally, anyway, Danny, before it sounds like I'm ignoring you, doesn't it? Was it nice to have football back? I mean, are you feeling broadly quite positive? Are you feeling sort of vilified? I mean, what's the emotions settled? What do you think?
Yeah, feeling quite good, thanks, mate. It's a little bit chilly in here, you know. A little bit chilly this evening.
Oh, Jesus. I was wondering how long it would take for that to happen.
No, it's been good, hasn't it? It's good. So it's nice to have the football back. It's nice to basically not have a painful week, not have a horrendous week. So that's basically a win, always a win. If you're not in total suicidal agony, as I said before, yeah, it's a win. So it's been good. It's been nice. Lot to think about, lot to talk about. Heads all over the place. Really. It's weird though when you have when you do have quite a good week, or at least not a terrible week. I don't know. Like I need to get into that. I need to sort of. Sometimes I get a little bit lax and a little bit sort of bask in it a bit too much and don't think enough about the game and don't be objective enough. And like I always say, the season's long, and that's like the biggest lesson is how long the season is and how you should just chill. And if you no matter how sort of badly you're doing, the season is long. Well, it does apply to doing well as well. You know what I mean? You need to not just start getting loose and not start, sort of getting ahead of yourself. And it's just 1 week. It means absolutely nothing to have. I mean, it's nice to have a good start, but it means pretty much nothing.
That's rather unfortunate for the basis of questions in the pod later on. So if you can pretend that you didn't mean that and that you've learned loads.
Okay, yeah.
And that you know everything. You can tell everyone all of the answers, that sort of thing. I should just say, someone has been very naughty in the chat. I should just pick them up on this. I mean, Jack Flash. I mean, he just doesn't give a single damn. The guy is an absolute maverick. He doesn't play by the rules. Jack Flash has quit his job so that he could watch live. I think that's a sound financial decision, and I'm sure your partner, whoever that may be, who seeks a solvent partner in their life, is in no way mad at you, and they won't come down on you like a ton of bricks. I'm sure that'll be fine. Yeah, be fine, no problem at all. Jack Flash.
It is quite weird, isn't it? It being this early and just seeing wait a minute, who's going to tune in? Is anyone going to tune in? Do people are people at home? Do people listen on the car on the way home? But yeah, it's we haven't got our upgrades yet either,
we don't think that if you could tune in at 6 or 6:30 or 4:30 in the afternoon that you're some kind of deadbeat bum. That's just us. We will take on that kind of label for you. You're doing absolutely fine. No problem at all. BP Defender has this down, by the way. The unemployed stream. Thank you, BB Defender. That actually did make me genuinely laugh. That's very good. Yes. Okay. Well, we should get on with it and all that kind of stuff. I'm just having a quick look over to see my list. I know. All I'm going to do is quickly sort of shout out the most recent of our Patreon signups. So if you haven't discovered this already, head over to www.patreon.com/FPL Last Resort. I'm getting there and sort of memorizing that as a sort of quick thing. I mean, like, I'm learning lessons off Alon. Alon is the sort of absolute don when it comes to these things. But yeah, not too bad. I know JP, he was the last sign up. I haven't got anything to raise. Have you got a glass?
I have, yeah.
Well, I've got this weird coloured bottle that very clearly belongs to my wife. But there we go, JP. I'm raising a weird coloured water bottle.
I'll be opening a beer shortly because I'm out tonight, so I'll be opening a beer and once we pass the yard arm, very, very shortly.
I'm told from the chat that we need a Danny OK. Practice maybe for next time. We can't do that on the off because, you know, if you get that wrong, you will never live it down. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's true.
So yeah, so we'll get there. But I know that at the end of last week as well, we had RP also joined, Gareth Pashley. I've probably already mentioned these people, but you can get 2 for 1. Why not? And NX Craig. But yes, do join over on there. Should you be interested in a little bit more of the Last Resort? Is that me for Sirens or is that you?
No, it's me.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean, I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. I'm in Manchester. There we go.
Yeah. It's you know, it's just crime everywhere. You can't kind of move down the streets without being sort of mugged or sexually assaulted. No, I shouldn't make jokes about that. But no, ignore everything I was about to say. Mugging. We'll stick to mugging. I'm not sure suggesting that's funny or either. I'm going to just move on. Good. Let's have a look at what we've got lined up this week so that I can move beyond that awkward little pause. Lessons learned is going to be our title this week. We'll see if we have any. We'll try and figure that out in a minute. Good choice of Solis and Cold Palmer on there as well. Good choices. I think everyone wants to talk about those for different reasons. Both look very, very good this week. One more bit of admin rather before we kick off with questions and actually a quick look at the fixtures and that sort of thing as well. But is the mini league code? Don't forget to join that. It's not too late. There will be the usual sort of ceiling at some point during the season. We haven't talked about this, to be honest with you. But at some point before Christmas, etc., there'll be a cut-off point where you can't win. You won't be able to beat Matt Nuttall, the legendary owner of the lavender spray. I should have checked who's topping the mini league actually, and I haven't done that. I will check that live.
Well, it's Eric. Wasn't I right in thinking Eric was like 10 in the world after Saturday or something? So
oh yeah, it is.
He won't be that high now, but he was very, very high. Say again.
116. Is that right? Bloody. Yeah, so quite correctly, Eric, with his team, odd man out. He has 116 points. Heather got 100, by the way. Well, I haven't seen her for ages. Heather, hopefully you're still on. I'm going to give you a shout out. And you can. We'll talk more, of course. Do sign up, all that stuff. But Heather, 100 points as well. So very, very good. Danny's not actually too far from the top, I should imagine. I'm not going to scroll down too far, because it would take a long time to get to my score, I suspect. But 2 people over 100, so well done, Eric, and well done, Heather. And just because I'm feeling generous, Gideon Wesonga has got 97 points, who has the most exciting name. There you go. Very good. Anyway, so that's the mini league. So R6 W9. So R6 W9. If you want to join the general one, there is a Patreon one as well, who I believe our good friend Psycho is on top of at the moment. So well done to Psycho, who is probably in the chat or will be later on as well. Quick review of last week. We're not going to take any time over this because I did worse. But Danny, 79. You got to be pleased with that.
Yeah, pretty pleased. Got to be pleased with that. I'm trying to get up my app, and it's a bit worrying because it's the first time ever that I can't open my app, and it's just saying try again. It looks like there's a problem. You know, when you just get completely irrationally fearful of just anything being wrong with your FPL team and you can't open it. I've never seen that before. So it won't load, which is really annoying because now I can't like check any players' prices or anything. I can't look at my score. Anyway. Yeah, so good, really. Just it's one of those sort of it's just the odd frustrating thing in there, but pretty good. Started with triple Arsenal defense, which is horrible. I hate having triple defense. To be honest, it's not a nice experience, even when it's Arsenal home to Coventry. But that's where I kind of landed on my no Haaland draft. I was kind of okay with that. Calafiori and White were completely locked for me. Anyway, whether I was going to go with the Haaland draft or no Haaland draft. Yeah, so actually as well, like I was kind of mixed feelings up until Monday, really, or certainly at least until City played, because even my no Haaland draft, I had Calafiori, I had White, I had Solis, they would have been locked.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously I had Haaland captain. So after Bruno blanked, I was like, oh man. And then, after Arsenal and Bruno blanked, I was like, man, this is, I wasn't gutted because I went into the season content. I did go in with that kind of absolute truth that I kept talking about. I did go in feeling like I knew the decision that I was going to make, so there wasn't any regrets. But it was a bit like, oh God, that's a bit annoying that the Haaland team looks so much better, because I was fully convinced that Haaland would bang against Bournemouth. And I said to you on Friday, didn't I, that I probably would have captained Haaland.
Yeah.
So I'm very glad that he didn't do anything. Although that was that felt lucky. A lot luckier than the sort of the Bruno Fernandes one, especially with that chance that Haaland missed from the O'Reilly cross. I mean, that was ridiculous. That's just one of them that you see that cross going 100 times and you just know how it ends. And I was sort of already watching Haaland celebrate, and then he somehow missed the ball. But yeah, very, very interesting week. So I mean, Anderson was a little bit. Well, Anderson was, everything's frustrating. Anderson was frustrating because he looked good. He's kind of doing what I expected him to do. He's taking really good corners from that side. Gahey missed a completely open net from Anderson. It was almost impossible to miss. He was on 7 DEFCON by like half time. Obviously, the last sort of 20 minutes is when it tends to get a bit scrappy, which he did. I'm pretty confident he probably would have made it to DEFCON. So that could have been different. He ends up with 2. It could have been a lot more. Whereas you pick someone like Njai, who's the same price, ends up with 9 from. Don't get me wrong, he's a good pick, but he shouldn't really have got DEFCON or the assist. Across that good does deserve an assist, I have to say, but it wasn't. It looked more like an own goal. Diop over O'Shea was very annoying. That was just kind of like, how do I kind of reflect on that? It's just like Diop was kind of safer in centre back, but then O'Shea had the history of more DEFCONs, and he ended up with like 18 DEFCON, which is just like doubly annoying. Did you see that? 18 DEFCON.
Yeah, wasn't it Egan who got the huge one? He was like 22, but yeah, O'Shea, yeah.
Yeah, so it just kind of makes me think, like, I know it's not easy it's randomness and there's not much you can take from it, but I don't know. There maybe is something a bit more in, rather than just positional, than in an actual player who just is scrappy and just gets stuck in and does loads of stuff. But yeah, so apart from that, United were rubbish, and the only game I didn't really see properly, I've sort of seen the second half highlights. I've not seen enough of it, which is actually one of probably the most interesting games on paper of the weekend, was Leeds Forest. So I didn't really see how Calvert-Lewin got on, but there's not much there in terms of numbers, and he just got a booking. So the bench boost was rubbish. I mean, you played the right goalkeeper over me. I did kind of convince myself. I was very close between the two, but I kind of convinced myself that maybe Kinski had the higher ceiling and just that maybe he could produce something in that game.
Yeah, moral victory for me there. Yeah,
moral victory for you. Although I feel better than you because I feel like I've got more points from my bench boost because I would have.
You have. And we can come to that. I mean, I think I've said this to a few people, but I really can't remember scoring double figures on bench boost. I think my record in the last 3 anyway is 6, 9, and 6. So if you see me playing mine at any point with a team that looks anything like yours, you need to sort that out. It's a bit of a problem for you, unfortunately. But what can you do? I mean,
it's a funny one as well. Sorry, just to say quickly on the bench boost thing, like because evaluating it is so hard this season, because weirdly, most that I've seen, most Haaland teams did better on the bench boost. You seem to be a little bit of an anomaly actually in that regard. I'm trying to think what the difference was.
Yeah, well, I'll put it this way.
It's just that a lot of them, for example, I had Rodon on the bench in my Haaland team, and a lot of teams had that sort of thing, a Leeds defender on Ayer on the bench. Ayer ended up getting 8, Leeds cleaned. I know you've got Van Heck, so that might be what ended up being like doubly different for you.
Oh.
But a lot of those Haaland teams, and obviously because I'm a no Haaland team, I've then got people like Gabriel. So then I've got Maguire on the bench, who everybody else is starting. So all these guys who are saying they did really well on the bench boost, that's because they're having to start Maguire because they own Haaland.
Yeah.
You know, whereas my team's better. So Maguire goes on my bench and he gets 1 point. So it is very weird trying to evaluate the bench boost this week.
Yeah, actually, I mean, a couple of things just to note on there. As you know, on that Friday, basically felt probably too relaxed and didn't really consider doing anything. But then I did have a thought in the afternoon at one point. I was like, when I found out, oh, you're definitely going with your no Haaland structure, I thought, wouldn't it be funny to pick, because it was only really 2 or 3 spots that were different in your Haaland team. I thought, maybe I'll just pick your Haaland team. And then it would be quite funny because effectively the only difference would have been I would have moved Van Hecker to White and then Rodon, Mihajlovic to Rodon. But of course that move would have got me 10 more points and then I'd be relatively happy, right? So I wish I had done that for fun. Because then that would have at least secured a few more points. But what can you do? Well, I think the one thing that's bothering me more than anything else, because I still don't think it was a bad set of choices by any means. But I would have liked to see some DEFCON points come in. To be honest with you, that's the thing that annoyed me most. Is when you pick a team with lots of kind of, I looked around the team and there's maybe 5 or 6 spots that in any given week could easily get DEFCON. Van Hecker was 1 away, I think, for example. You kind of expected Mihajlovic to score some, maybe, that kind of thing. Anderson would have got it if he didn't get his dead leg. And, of course, he should have got an assist. We've both talked about that already with the Gahey situation. But, yeah, I think that those kind of little things wind you up a bit, don't they? But, I mean, like you say, it's only a week and we'll see how it goes. But I think the big difference is for us is that, you're more likely, we'll talk about it later, to use a chip game week 3. And of course I have to decide on how to resolve my Palmer-shaped problem now, whereas a lot of managers will find that more straightforward than me. So that would be quite an interesting one for us to talk about. Probably not this week, but later on down the line. Anyway, I can see a few people are already asking. I mean, I should just point this out now. We're already asking important questions related to the content here. Harry wants to know what lunch we had because it's too early for dinner. So, if you have an answer, please do.
I had 1 slice of Marmite on toast with lots of butter, and then a cheese ploughman's sandwich, and then my usual healthy milkshake. It's no more porridge. Porridge is not working well. It's not working well with my stomach.
No, yeah, you said the porridge issues.
Bad things are happening.
I should have recognized. In fact, all of our viewers will immediately be like, "Yeah, I knew Danny was going to be a Marmite person." So that looks like it. Just to pick up on this very quickly, and then I'll get on with my job. But we are a nation of sandwiches at our desks, Craig. It's interesting you say that because one thing I don't like about British life is that sort of transition to an Americanized economy where everyone tries to gulp down food and work really hard at their desks. I want to move towards the sort of French-Italian mode of taking sort of several hours over lunches personally. So
you mean just
if
never
could organize that would be great. I don't want to do any work. Basically, that's my. I'm going to just bring up one quick thing. I can't bring it up on the screen, so I'll just drop the screen for a minute. But one thing I've just been looking through, there's going to be quite a few people who are no doubt despondent after game week 1, as often people are. You might not be an Eno with your sort of 116 points, but I'm just looking at the manager who's got the lowest score in our mini league. I'm not going to read out his name, but his name's Dave. No, I'm only joking. But I'm just looking at this.
Give him a shout out.
Go on then. Okay, I'll have to enlarge my screen now. James Stevens, who is whose team is called FPL Champion 2027. Ooh, well, it's fine. It'll be. Hey, if you can turn it around from here, that'd be amazing, James. But James, his team reads like this. Imagine the fixtures for game week 1 in your head here: Lamans, O'Reilly, Ballard, and Maguire, Szoboszlai, Wirtz, Semenyo, Mbuemo, Lefay, Haaland captain, and João Pedro. That's a good team. There's nothing wrong with that at all. You should quite understand. He's going to bench boost game week 2 from the looks of it anyway, for what it's worth.
And he even dodged Bruno Fernandes, which is looking like a good decision at the moment.
Oh yeah. He's not. Yeah, I hadn't even noticed that. Although dodging, I suppose. Well, maybe he can rectify this. I was just saying dodging Bruno and not having Palmer is probably could have been something that would have been.
Oh wait,
really
so
nice
did Thomas get? Thomas did get a DEFCON added. What, 2 days later? Didn't? Oh no, Alan didn't have Thomas. He had the other guy, didn't he? Oh yeah, sorry, I'm getting mixed up. Yeah, no, my bad.
Oh, what was his name?
Yeah, the other dude.
Yeah, I've already forgotten his name. The guy who's going to lose his spot to Pinnock, basically.
Just to try and make James feel a little bit better. Well, I don't think my uncle knows of the existence of this podcast, but he started playing FPL last season, and I think he sort of low key fancies himself this season. So he's been like really desperate to join my mini league. We've got like a mini league with a few family members and friends and stuff. So he's definitely fancying himself a bit low key. I'm going to see him tonight actually. So he's joined the mini league, but he got fewer points than James. He got like 32 or something for the week. So
yeah. So James, for what it's worth, 35 points with that team, which is ruddy harsh. So
really
unlucky.
harsh. Really
but come back stronger. Danny will send you a keg of ale as a gift. He won't really, because we don't have the postal fees or financial clout to pull that off. But win the mini league and we'll send you something instead. Anyway, where am I? Let's go back to the slides. Danny, up to you, but I'm going to bring up the fixtures in terms of the results for last week, and then we can we'll transition to questions. To be honest with you, questions will overlap with this potentially a little bit anyway, but I will try and do a skillful segue here and there if necessary. What did you want to do? Did you want to talk through these particularly, or do you want to go on to questions? What's your vibe?
Yeah, it'd probably help us warm up if we just talk a little bit about what we saw and who stood out players wise, and just to get thinking. I'm just trying to load my thing. By the way, chat, please tell me if you can hear aeroplanes going past. I know that Richie said it's not that loud, but I'm getting paranoid. It's bothering me. So if you can, just tell me and I'll close the window. And I just thought we've got to just have a little bit of a warm up and think about what we saw, and it's just not that easy to think. But I mean, I guess, well, start with you for once and tell me what you thought about anything. I mean, I was thinking of starting at Chelsea with Fulham just because it's kind of recency bias.
Yeah. No, I'm absolutely glad to do that. You know what? I saw NX Craig's message in the chat saying he can't hear anything, and I worried for a minute. I was like, God, Christ, can you not hear anything? I was like, but he means the planes. Just tell me that you mean that, Craig, and we'll carry on. Yeah. I mean, actually, that Chelsea game is a good one to start with. I think. I mean, there's some obvious things to start with, but I will just go arse about face here. I did think just for kind of a later note, because it's going to get buried under everything else. But I think in terms of going forward, I can see Fulham might actually be all right. I mean, they didn't, in terms of attacking, there's one or two new players there, and I can't remember their names, and I know I should know because I'm doing this. But there are some talented players there. Good bit of movement there. Chelsea still don't look a terrific team at the back, particularly. Although, of course, marauding Lacroix, we should note that, of course, and of course, unfortunately for those who own Palestra, gutted. I don't know. I haven't heard any more on that. Is he all right? Do you know anything?
I just heard that. I just heard him say that there was a few minor issues, or there was a couple of issues in the week that he just didn't mention. So, yeah, that was obviously another thing that we learned, that everyone's talked about, the fact that Alonso's just going to lie and not tell us anything. And I mean, you know, that's even, we talked about Alonso the week before, sort of not wanting to tell us who's taking the penalties. So I think the fact that we know he's now an outrageous, scandalous liar.
Swine.
Yeah, it's just like it's a bit sort of Arteta-esque, where he just wants to go really out of his way to try and get people off the scent, which is like whatever. But you know what I mean? That just makes me think that the whole penalty thing was just another load of nonsense, where he just thought he was being smart and sort of making us wonder who might take the penalties in case he wants the goalkeeper coach revising different penalty taker positions, that sort of nonsense, you know. So the fact he didn't want to tell us he was on penalties, even though Cole Palmer, I mean, when you saw how confident Cole Palmer looked on Monday, by the way, and just the whole aura, he's not. Nobody else is taking a penalty in that team. I don't care how good João Pedro is. When you saw the way Cole Palmer's moving, he's not going to go, yeah, okay, someone else can take them now if you want. So that was.
I mean,
bullshit as well.
I'm just going to ask you about this. I mean, because obviously we can come to this now. I mean, I know that you're a Cole Palmer stan, and you quite rightly picked him, and you're that's looking terrific for you. But even you must have been surprised by quite how aggressive he was in that game. I hadn't seen. I think the thing that surprised me wasn't, for example, I don't know, the goal or any of the returns or anything like that, but that he was running aggressively at players for what felt like the first time in ages. I don't remember him looking like he wanted to rip your face off. He had that kind of that arrogant swagger that I hadn't seen for a while, and like direct running. I haven't seen him direct run. Right. Do you remember he sort of a bit broke into the England team at the last major tournament before this one? And he had that couple of bits where you're like, oh my God, he's the only player who can run at players and do things. And why aren't you playing him more? And of course, we all had that moment on Friday, or is it not Monday rather, where everyone thought, oh, there's a player injured, surely it's going to be Palmer. And you must have had that moment as well, where you thought, oh Christ, have I done it again, type of thing. So I'm kind of curious as to your emotional state during that game, in terms of like whether it exceeded your expectations, whether it's what you expected, whether you were worried about injuries, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I have to kind of be calm here and sort of temper myself, and I also have to sort of say, like, no matter what I'm going to say about Palmer now or anything, I don't want it to sound, there's no I told you so or anything. That's not what it is. Like, I can only sort of say how I feel and about the player and stuff, and just be honest. That's all I can do. And it's certainly not like an I told you so, but I am obsessed with the player. Like, I just think I'm obsessed with him as a footballer. I'm a very obsessive person, in sort of in a sort of perfectly rational and sensible and legal way, where tennis, for example, I just obsessed with Roger Federer, and just like that's what I want to watch it for. That's what gives me incredible joy and fascination, and I'm fascinated by the mechanics and the sport and the potential and the ability, and then the sort of mental side of certain players and certain people. I was obsessed with Wayne Rooney for a long time. Probably always be my favorite player in history. Utterly fascinating, again, from a kind of mental and psychological perspective, and just a talent perspective. Same with Ronnie O'Sullivan. So I get quite obsessed with individuals. You know what I mean? I just find it utterly fascinating, certain things, and it's sort of that kind of mercurial nature, and people who are kind of an enigma, and you're trying to figure them out. Because I spent my whole entire life really thinking about people and just trying to figure people out quite intensely. And some people I kind of can't, and I find it very hard to relate to, and especially people like Palmer, or when Rooney was young, and that kind of fearlessness where there's just no doubt, there's no self-doubt, and combined with the ability and stuff. And yeah, so Palmer basically is and has been for a long time that for me in football. It kind of doesn't make sense. I mean, even some of the runs that he made in that game, where it's like he kind of looks a bit sort of gangly at times, or doesn't look entirely neat at times, but he'll go past 4 or 5 players. Some people say he's like not quick, but it's just, which I don't really agree with, but then he'll go past 4 or 5 players, and you're like, oh my God, he just like, you just casually nearly scored the goal of the season. And yeah, I mean, obviously I wasn't, I couldn't, I'm not going to say I was expecting him to perform like that. I was hoping he would perform like that. I mean, again, the part of the reason me having Palmer in the team is not just my belief in the player, but it was a strategy play. It was a long-term play in terms of, for me, it did, if I was going without Haaland, it didn't really make sense for me to go to the no Haaland route without Palmer from a strategy point of view. Like I've said for a long time, I didn't. The sort of locking yourself into wildcard 3 isn't for me. I don't really like the strategy, although it's fine. We'll talk about wildcard 3 later in the thing, and it could work out great. It's just not what I wanted to do, and I wanted to have those options. And just for me, when I looked through the weeks for 6-7 weeks, it didn't make logical sense for me at all to, if you're not going with Haaland, to not have Palmer, because it gives you so many more options in terms of, well, yeah, lasting longer without the wild card, or not transferring Bruno out in game week 4, using a lot of transfers, whatever it is. It just felt a lot cleaner for me for Palmer in there. So there was that point of view already. There was the strategy point of view. Having him, there's so many good cheap players. It's much easier for me to just have him and come off him. So that was just like, if it was no Haaland, it was absolutely, unlike many, it was unquestionable. If I was going without Haaland, it was 100%. And to be fair, thinking about my positivity about Palmer and how good I felt about him, I was thinking back to the first pod we did pre-season. Do you remember the very first pod we did? And I actually said,
yeah,
I said something like he is just something daft, but I was like, he is stone cold Steve Austin locked in my team. And because that's how good I felt about it from day one. And so, yeah, I mean, you just didn't, I was kind of researching loads as well, and kind of being obsessive on that front, because I wanted to feel confident about his injury, because I did get a little bit spooked by that thing in pre-season. And I told you all about the kind of thing that I'd read into him, where he did go and visit this specialist in Iceland who said he didn't need surgery. He'd been doing all this work on his core and this strength and stuff, etc., etc. And it seemed to me that from everything that I'd read, that he must be physically good. Like, there's a very good chance. Otherwise, all these specialists and everyone have just got it completely wrong with the most important player on the team. That seemed unlikely to me. That they would have all got it, that kind of thing completely wrong.
Yeah, I have to say, can I just buy in a bit here? Because I think there are probably quite a few managers watching who had this situation. Is that, I mean, I have this tendency to do this, which is a way of sort of compartmentalizing information and being able to move on with certain things. And if I'm honest, and I'm guessing I'm not alone, so you can agree with me or disagree with me in the chat, but I think on that pod, okay, let's say you were kind of 95% Palmer. I was kind of 85% there as well, if you know what I mean. Like, I was structuring every draft. I know it wasn't really draft by that point, around him, and wanted it in there, and it made sense to me. And it was a case of, where am I making the other sacrifices and that sort of thing. But that injury came along, and it does that thing and I'll be honest, it's a little bit of the, that's made my life easier, and just switch that off.
Yeah.
So I think personally, I must have just switched that button off and thought, okay, Palmer's a problem. I need to see it. I'm going to wait until after.
I don't want the decision. Yeah, I don't want the decision. Everyone's going to come off. I said that at the time, though. I said that time that everyone was happy about that, because then they didn't have a decision to make.
Yeah,
and that was a bit of group think going on there.
yeah. No. I agree, but it did, and and often with good reason, right? He's had a problematic patchwork sort of 18 months or so. It gave people an easy out, for better or worse, and that it could have easily been right. It could have easily been the guy on Friday, etc., that we were all like, oh yeah, not surprised. Not Friday, on Monday, he's the guy that's a problem. But as you say, the extra bit of research, the finding out about the physical diagnosis in Iceland, etc., all of that kind of stuff, that secret little bit of extra information was really, really helpful. So
the other thing, can I go on just before I forget? Go on, carry on.
No, I'm pretty much there. It's okay.
Sorry, it's just kind of, I was trying to make sense of the path in my head as well, like in terms of trying to think how it's sort of different to anyone else as well, because of course the other thing, he hasn't been himself for a long time. It's been a long time, so many people have made that sort of shift in the head that they just, again, partly to sort of, I don't know, there is part of it is like not wanting to make a decision, that Palmer just isn't as good as certain players, or as good in FPL as certain players, or whatever. Whereas for me, I mean, first of all, for me, again, people won't like this. It's just my opinion. It doesn't mean it's right, or it doesn't mean it's right at all. And many people don't agree. I think he's the best player in the league, and I think he's the best FPL pick in the game when he's Palmer. So, and I know people can say, yeah, but he hasn't been for a year or two. But for me, it's like really like. So when we talk about captaincy later in terms of this week, I think that's also, if people are trying to evaluate whether they think like that or something similar, the captaincy discussion is one, because I think a lot of people will still be like, well, it's just Haaland or Fernandes. And again, it kind of is. Well, certainly Fernandes has got a much better fixture, so it's a slightly different conversation. But for me, it's immediately now. It's not just in terms of the players, in terms of the potential, Haaland or Fernandes. It's immediately Haaland, Fernandes, and Palmer, because he's just already, that's how good he is as a pick. But yeah, in terms of like trying to make sense of like whether that dip for the whole year was just an injury, because the thing is, it's easy to forget that he was injured, and it was an injury when it's that long, when it's a full season. But it's like, we know he was injured. We know that he had this groin issue. We know that he was coming off. He had the periods from Christmas where he literally, he was literally injured. One of the things that, sorry, I just read your message, but yeah, one of the things that I worry about is confidence. And when you go that long without being yourself, how does it affect? Because again, this is fascinating to me, because I can't relate to this. I can't understand this. If it was me, I would probably break down in terms of confidence. I wouldn't be the same. I don't know. Whereas some players, it doesn't make a difference. They just don't give a shit. And so I worried about Palmer, whether he would actually recover psychologically, whether a lot of that, whether part of the reason why he was the best player in the league, in my opinion, for 2 years was because he had this confidence. And is that just a trait? Is it going to stay there for good, or is it not? And anyway, this is a long-winded way of saying that one of the things that genuinely, again, just made me feel a little bit more comfortable going into the week was, do you see those videos that they did with official FPL on like asking the players about their price and whether you buy them in FPL? And obviously there was the one with Haaland, which scared me, because he was just like, he literally looked down the camera and was like, so if anyone's thinking of going without me, think again. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, you are joking me. You don't want Haaland saying that to you directly to your face. And then like Bruno was just being like really humble, as he always is, sort of thing. And Palmer was interesting to me again because of the year that he's had. But he literally sat there. He was like that. And they were like, so what do you think of your price, Cole? And he was like, what is it? And he was like, was it 10.5? And they were like, no, it's 9.5. You've gone down a million. So he was like, yeah, fair enough. Been injured, innit? Been injured. And then they were like, so why do you think people should pick you in your FPL team this year? And Palmer was like, going to score loads of points, innit? And I just thought, oh, this guy hasn't changed one bit. This is who he is. He's just an absolute monster. So yeah, and then that's what he did on Monday. And it's fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. So we've talked enough about Palmer, I know, and people probably don't want to talk about it. I just think it's fascinating from a football perspective. I absolutely love him. And I really hope he does stay fit. The only thing is, it's a bit of a game breaker. You're just laughing at the chat now because everyone's taking the piss out of me, aren't they?
No. I was just thinking something completely separate.
Oh, okay. 9.5 million. If he is what I think he is, and he is what we saw on Monday, it's just bonkers. I mean, yeah, best pick in the game. So, go on. What are you thinking?
No, I was just thinking a minute ago. There are some celebrities or sports people, for example. There are some where you hear someone interview and you'd be like, yeah, they seem all right, actually. I reckon I could have a beer with them and we'd probably get on very well. I think if I sat in a room with Cole Palmer, we wouldn't understand each other. Like there would just be no. I know you know what I mean here. Is like we wouldn't. It would be like, it's best we don't bother. Let's just move on, because I just think there would be nothing. I mean, what's he's going to know nothing about the Count of Monte Cristo, is he? He's going to know nothing. So what's the point? But
I pretty much grew up with people like that, so I think I'd be fine. But yeah. It's quite funny.
Yeah, yes, scallies. Yeah, no, absolutely fine. Yeah, no, but yeah, I know. I think really, really good. I'm curious. Actually, we should just kind of do you mind if we immediately go over to the whole Manchester United? I mean, yes, you do, probably.
Yes, I do. Yes.
But no, because obviously everyone this week is sort of twiddling their thumb, thinking, well, I probably won't do anything this week. But I've got something in mind for game week 4. Of course, we can't really talk about that much already, because loads could happen. But I'm just curious to see what whether you are worried about Manchester United assets after that game, and whether there is any kind of grounds to be concerned about your Mbuemos and Brunos and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
I'm really glad you said that, actually, because linked to that point, what I forgot to say, because whilst I was just kind of rambling and obsessing about Cole Palmer, was that one of the most useful things for me about Monday night, I thought, was Fulham's approach to the game. And we're always looking for those teams, aren't we, that like they attack, they play football no matter what, they're going for it, they open it, because they were really open at the back. I mean, Chelsea were kind of open at times. It was a bit of a mad game. I don't know if we can take a huge amount from it other than the kind of tactical setups and the sort of fitness of certain players. It's still a bit like a sort of intense pre-season friendly, but that's really useful to me to see a team like that, because when you talk about captaincy, I'm going to go off on tangent again now. So see if I can bring this back full circle. It's important because I was kind of thinking about captaincy in general over the season. Now I know we've got the promoted sides, although that's still a bit iffy because like they've signed so many players and so on. But I was thinking about the Leeds and Forest game, and I was thinking how that's an interesting game because they're like two really good sides. And I was thinking they're the type of sides that are like good managers, really good teams that are kind of mid-table, just above mid-table. And then I was thinking, who else is like Forest and Leeds, where they're just like really good teams that are like really solid, defensively, that you wouldn't really want to play against. And then I was thinking, hang on a minute, well, there's like Bournemouth, there's Brentford, there's Brighton, there's possibly Newcastle. I mean, I don't want to say Spurs now, but they just signed loads of players. Maybe they're all fit. And I was going, oh shit! Like, hang on a minute, just the entire Premier League, the entire Premier League are incredible. Like, it's mad how good the teams from especially from kind of 4th to 17th are. Because I think the general meta of this season is we're seeing Arsenal probably even better. I'll talk about Arsenal in a second. And then the sort of 2 or 3 that are competing with them drop off. That obviously Pep's left. It feels just early shout. There's going to be Arsenal. Then there's the level below where there's a little bit of a scrap for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, which might be whatever, like Chelsea, Man City, wherever, Liverpool, maybe Man United, but probably not. But then the rest of the teams, they're just all so good. So it's really hard to identify those teams that are those sort of games that are really good fixtures for your attackers, and especially for captaincy. So you love the teams, a bit like it was a couple of years ago. It was whether it was De Zerbi or Potter or something. Like Brighton were an example that comes to mind, where you knew they were going to play football. They were a good team, but you could expect it to be a good game for your attackers. I love that. I think that's really valuable information that we don't get a lot of this anymore. And because not many teams I can think of that are like that. When I name all those teams that I just named, that are really going to just play football and go for it. So Fulham, that stood out for me on Monday. They were kind of all this sort of thing about stretching the defend, centre backs out wide and leaving this sort of gaps in space. So, that links to the point about Man United and Bruno, because, yeah, one of the things about a lot of people like you just kind of insinuated about selling Bruno in Game Week 4 is Man United play Fulham in Game Week 5. And based on what we've just seen from Fulham, that looks like an absolutely incredible fixture for Bruno Fernandes. Because, the way that Man United is set up, we're definitely set up as a counter-attacking team. Most of the teams in the league are trying to play a little bit more of this kind of lower possession football. In fact, they all are. They're all moving towards lower possession. That's another point we'll come to in terms of what the tacticos are talking about. I think we even saw this sort of pattern this weekend, like all the teams that won had lower possession, but or certainly all but one or something. Man United have been built towards this kind of counter-attacking team on the break, fast transitions for a long time now under Carrick. That's what we're sort of specialists in. Like, we struggle against deep blocks. We struggle against teams where we just got the ball loads and we just don't know what to do. But Fulham looks like a great fixture. So that's kind of like, I'm low-key looking at that going, oh, it could be really nice if I do have Bruno Fernandes on paper from what we see at the moment against Fulham in Game Week 5.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, obviously, assuming you don't wildcard, you wouldn't have Haaland against Sunderland at home.
Of course.
But yeah, no, I know what you're saying. It's a good, it's at Fulham, isn't it? Just checking. It doesn't matter so much.
Yeah, which is even better, I think. Probably might be. I don't know.
I can see that. Yeah. No, it'd be quite interesting. Someone did put in the chat that Fulham play Liverpool in Game Week 4 as well. So that kind of gives us an interesting kind of idea, perhaps a little bit more information on how they might be responding over the next few weeks. So that could be quite a good one to keep your eye on as well.
On United, just sort of quickly, we were obviously really bad. I don't know how, it's one of those. We did just, I know other people said it, but we did just kind of lose to set pieces, and it wasn't like we got rinsed in open play. It was a very strange game, but we weren't good. I'm not going to deny it. I was a little bit worried. About that interview before the season started with Tielemans, who basically said, like, we don't we don't do any running in training. We don't do any fitness. We just do ball work. And like Ferdinand was interviewing him. He was like really shocked. And I thought, that's strange. But then you see us get beat up by Hull and look like we're struggling a little bit. And you think, oh, I don't want to put 2 and 2 together. I think this doesn't, I don't want to, I'm not creating a narrative, but I'm like, it doesn't sound great that we don't do any running. I mean, the Premier League these days is like just a really physical league. I mean, it's super, it's not 2005 anymore. So I hope Carrick's not thinking, it doesn't get that. So it's a little bit worrying. But yeah, I mean, I really hope Fernandes steps up this week and does something good, because we need him and we need that price point in FPL. Otherwise, it's just too easy for everyone to just come off Fernandes. Get Haaland, who I think is still going to be amazing, and Palmer just looks absolutely ridiculous. So then it makes it a little bit easy. With United, I would say that in those sort of games, we need Sesko playing in those games. From what I can see, I mean, I'm no expert, but we just don't know what to do. And I mean, as soon as he came on, he should have scored straight away. He missed. The chance that he had probably doesn't even register on the XG. I think he missed the ball altogether. Should have buried it. He could have scored 2 headers straight away when he came on. He's immense in the air. He's massive. He's a focal point. So we do really need him. Yeah, but neither of us had Bumo, did we?
No. Good news there.
And he had the best chances. And
I did have the best chance,
yeah. I was speaking to Luke actually on Saturday morning, and because he was saying to me that I was one of the only people that had questioned his minutes and that he'd seen at all. Because his ownership is insane, by the way. I looked at I think someone posted the analytics, Elite 64 versus the Elite 64 type of thing, whatever. Bumo's ownership in the analytics Elite 64 was 94%, I think, if I remember correctly. 94% in analytics. But he was like, everyone in the world owned Bumo. And I do think we'll never know. So I don't want anyone to get offended. But I think they got quite lucky in terms of minutes. I thought he was a 70-minute player anyway. If I'm mad, I said we talked about it last week, but I still think Dorgu's nailed for now on the left until he just plays really badly repeatedly. And I think Ahmad's nailed on the right when he's fit, which I don't know how long he'll be out for. Like Luke said, to get the last game, the last friendly that United played, it was Cunha up front, and everyone just assumed that Bumo was rested, but that isn't necessarily the case. Like, Cunha's Brazil's number 9, and there's decent evidence there that Carrick actually, because he played in there a lot at the end of last season, just likes having Cunha as the striker. So there's a not insignificant chance that Bumo just wouldn't have even started. I'm not saying that I think he wouldn't have started, but there is a real chance he wouldn't have, and there's just a real possibility. So I think his minutes were way more shaky than people realised, and that was quite annoying actually, because then it was just like, we'll never know, and he's just locked in for 90 minutes now while Ahmad's out. So
yeah. As you say, Harry in the chat has popped that in as well. Ahmad out for 6 weeks. Yeah, so it does make a.
So is it 6 weeks then? Because I just heard someone say yesterday that someone said it might have even been late rise or something, saying that apparently he might not be injured at all now. But I don't know. But that's not like LR to say something like that unless it's right. So I don't know for certain, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, listen to updates ahead of the weekend. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one. I mean, in a way, I mean, I know we probably won't pick our way through all of these fixtures, but it's just worth just bringing up some talking points before we go on to the questions. But the Hull game and the Brentford game kind of gave me a similar vibe of, essentially 2 home teams who just immediately out of the gate were just much more aggressive and high energy and really intense, and had a very particular sense of a kind of game plan against 2 teams who, well, not that they're the same by any means. I think I'd be harsher on Tottenham from what I saw in terms of the gameplay, but those both home teams were really, really motivated and really, really high energy. So very impressive from both. I mean, let's be honest, if you've got Egan or Slater or something, well done. I'm sure it was all planned. But I mean, actually, would you mind if we just briefly touched on, because there's going to be a question later on this Brentford Tottenham game I think is quite interesting, because it's come up later a few times in terms of, I don't know, how much you can learn from game week 1 and whether there are any kind of worthwhile bandwagons. We can touch on Actually, I'll just bring it up now. We can touch on the Brighton game for this as well. But at the top of the screen there, you'll see on the questions how much have we learned anything after 1 week? Do we overestimate how much we know? And then there's also a game about question about bandwagons and whether players like Sangario, Cuyper are worth our attentions this week or not. I'm just curious as to where, what we think in terms of that. So that Brentford Tottenham game and that Brighton one are two examples of where these bandwagons or these early learnings, you have to decide how much you really know. So what do you think about? I mean, would you be? Have you immediately sort of gone full Jossie? No one will know what I'm talking about now, and hit the buttons, and De Cuyper is in straight away, and Sangari is in.
I hope he hasn't got either of those players for price rises. By the way,
I'm going to find out actually. If someone in the chat knows who I'm talking about and wants to send Jossie a message, who, to be fair, 3 hours ahead, this is probably ideal for him. So yeah,
we need to talk about price rises as well at some point. By the way, we need to talk about price rises because that seems to have slowed down a lot, which I don't like actually. So let's remind me to come back to that about price rises.
Just sending him a message.
Yeah, I mean, I think as always at the start of the season it isn't a whole answer. There isn't an answer to like, did we learn lots or did is it informative? There isn't an answer to that. It's specific to the game, isn't it? It's specific to the players and to what's going on and what we can read as kind of knowable or repeatable and that's the whole point of Gameweek 1 is trying to find which things are kind of anomalies or what are explainable and why and which ones aren't. I mean, the Brentford and Brighton are two really good examples where I guess we need to think about this a little bit more. And next season, I'm talking about myself here. I hate using the word we. Why am I using the word we? And I kind of did think about it already. So I was going into the season thinking about Brentford and about Leeds. For example, Leeds was another team where I sort of thought these are the teams where there's been minimal disruption. Everybody's there. Everybody's fit. They've had a full pre-season. They look like they're getting up and running to speed in sync and just looking good. And like it's they're at a completely different level of fitness. That was Brentford as one example. I mean, Spurs, yeah, they signed loads of players, but as like Baker discussed on his pod, obviously Baker and Adam, both Spurs fans, sort of saying, just as much money that they've spent in terms of players were players missing and not available. They had no Porro and there was loads of players missing. So there's a bit of a mismatch there. I mean, Brighton was the biggest mismatch in terms of fitness because Villa have obviously been completely dismantled in terms of losing all the players. And Brighton, one of the things I always think as well, at the start of the season, people were talking about like the fact that Brighton were playing on the Thursday, playing in Europe and then playing in the league. And I sort of kind of think like right at the start of the season, it just feels like a bit of a boost, if anything, to just have those extra games of just getting minutes when you've been knackered for so long. I don't think that sort of Thursday, Sunday, or European stuff kicks in terms of tiredness and fatigue at the start of the season. I think if anything, it might just boost you, just makes you a bit more match ready and just like just gets your body going a bit. Obviously, that's just speculative, but I did kind of think that with Brighton going in, I thought they're just going to be like fully ready here to go, and that's what we saw play out. So what I'm saying is, it's a bit different in both cases. With Villa, it looks like they're in such a mess that they're probably going to be a mess for the next 5 or 6 weeks or so. And you basically just trust in Emre to turn that around because he is such a good manager if he stays. Because it is getting a bit weird now. Like, why would he stay? I mean, I don't know. So, yeah, but Brentford just reminded us what a good team they are. I mean, the other thing with Sangare, I was really annoyed because you want to say these things before they happen, but virtually every week that we did a preseason pod, I'd like said to myself when I was thinking about Sangare that I just wanted to say that, like, and I know it's obvious and loads of people said it anyway, but I was like, on the question of like, is Sangare going to be a really good player? The answer is it should just be, well, Brentford bought him. You know what I mean? Like, if Brentford or Brighton buy a player, especially if it's for 38 million, they're way better at recruitment than anyone else in the league. Way better. And you just know on that basis they're going to be absolutely sick.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because I'm sure everyone has probably seen this week they're heavily linked. If not, they've already signed El Hadji Malik Diouf the left back.
Mm.
And he quite commonly has been linked to Manchester United, and I've always come back with the same answer, is that he's no way near good enough for Manchester United in my head. But of course, now that he's signed for Brentford, he's definitely good enough for Manchester United. so that is the logic right
Well,
there.
exactly. It's a bit like Brighton. When Brighton signed, was it Vuskovic? Was Vuskovic coming from Spurs or something? I can't remember now. I'm getting confused. Yeah, he did, didn't he?
Via the Bundesliga. Yeah.
That should tell you everything. Like if you've got a player and you think, I want to sell this player and they're not very good, if Brighton are come in and try and buy them, you should go, oh right, guys, cancel it. We're keeping this guy. We need to start starting him immediately because Brighton and Brentford want to sign him. So Brentford was a real reminder. Sorry, go on.
It was. No, a few people were just commenting on the other side of things and talking about Spurs, so I'll just come to that in a minute. I do think this might come across as a little bit not controversial, and I don't exactly mean this, but the only thing I would say about Brentford is I feel quite confident about I feel confident enough backing the team, but as individual picks, I'm not necessarily sure there is anyone I definitely want at this point. And I include Thiago to some extent on that, just because there are players that are so much more important at this point in time. But of course, he is a good player, and you should keep him. Blah blah blah. But just very quickly on the Spurs thing, I've seen a few people say I don't understand the defense pick and that sort of thing. I don't know. Well, maybe I've got this wrong. I think Van Hecker is was someone on paper for me who, if you were planning like a robust team in the long term, someone who you could play in, I don't know, not every week necessarily, but he seemed like a good pick to me. But clearly that the evidence wasn't great there. We shall see when they've had a settled side. I think I'm a bit more confident in him most. However, I am benching him this week. He did almost get diff gone for what it's worth. The highlights in the first half, he looked dreadful, but then everyone did. Whereas in the second half, it was a bit more what I was hoping to see, sort of a little bit more all action blocks and that sort of thing. But it wasn't a good start.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a good pick as well, Van Heck. So I'm not going to say I didn't. I thought it was a good pick, and it could still be. Again, it's just one of these games I don't think we can take a huge amount from. Tottenham got to get a lot of players back, and they played a really, really good team.
Yeah,
you've got to be really on it. When a team's like Brentford are really fully fit, it's a bit like playing league, like I just said, some of those other teams. If they're really on it, you've got to be so on it to kind of counter that. I mean, think back to that Chelsea game against Fulham. Fulham were fully ready as well. Fulham looked really fit. They looked really good. But Chelsea went in just ready. Just like the Premier League is so hard now. Some of the tackles that Chelsea players were putting in the first half were monstrous. I mean, Lavia so nearly got himself sent off. They were really going in there to go, right, you're here for the fight. We're fucking here for the fight as well. Like just right in the faces. You have to respond with so much against these teams around the Premier League when they come at you at the start of the season and they're fully fit. So if they're fully fit and they're on it and you're not, and there's just bits missing, you're going to get rinsed. And that's what's happened with those two teams. On Brentford, yeah, absolutely. Didn't like Sharda or Dango personally from the start because of the potential minutes. I mean, it's such a weird pick, Dango and Sharda, because virtually every last season, virtually every week, you'd get Dango. It's almost like he was rotating each week which one he'd bring off and give 60 or 70 minutes to. He'd play Dango for 90 minutes. Then the next week 60, then the next week 90. Anyone who's getting 60, 70 minutes is a complete no-go. Not interested in the slightest for me. So those guys are a no-go, even though that's the sort of sad thing about the modern game. The modern game of FPL. It's two kind of numbers, data. It just is what it is. Outputs, kind of avenues. Minutes are king. This is it. So there's some players that have seemed fun are just not options for me. On Sangare, I mean, that is interesting because I think he will just start playing 90 minutes, but he has to play 90 minutes to be the good pick that he potentially is. So everyone's just bought him. He only played like 78 minutes, 75 minutes. If I think he will get 90 minutes, but we don't know that yet. We don't actually know that. I think usually those sort of guys that sit in the middle who look really athletic and sort of fit. Yeah, you'd hope that he will just move to 90 minutes, but he hasn't done that yet. So if he's getting 75 minutes, 78 minutes, he's a terrible pick. It's not just like he's a good pick, or he doesn't need it, or there'll be people saying to me, "You got 2 assists. He's going to get assists before he comes." No, he's not. He might get the odd assist here and there, but he's still just a defensive midfielder basically. So he needs to play 90. Thiago, though, that again, it was just that if anything, that just pushes it up 10-20% in terms of a reminder. I mean, I've got Isak, and you know me, I talked about how much there were stages pre-season when I was like, I'll definitely have Thiago over Isak because I just prefer him as a pick. But obviously with the Isak pick, it's just one of them again where it's like, because he's 1 million more, you'd rather be on it than not on it. And you know, Isak's a guy who still could be amazing. This is a guy who, 2 years ago, he literally scored every single week in the Premier League for an entire season and got a golden boot, and he's just ridiculous player. And you look at their fixtures, whatever, they've got Forest at home, then they've got Ipswich, then they've got Fulham at home, ridiculous fixtures. So you think, as much as I like Thiago, I'd rather be on someone like Isak in case he goes mad. But with Thiago, it really is another reminder just how good Brentford are, that they've got this just so much cohesion there. The team is so good. All they've done is added this, what looks like a sensational centre midfielder. And they're still big chance Brentford. And Thiago just looks like one of those guys who never dips. He looks so robust. He just always got the minutes. He always turns up. He's on penalties. He's just always in the right place. He doesn't seem to be affected by confidence. He's kind of a bit of a cumbersome player, but he always makes the right decision. So even if he's got looking like he's going to get tackled, he releases the ball. He feeds someone. He puts it in the box. He's on the end of things. He's a bit of an animal. He really is an animal, Thiago. So forwards are not as good in the game as they used to be. But if you're going to go the price for someone really solid and robust, someone who I think still is worth the money, even at 8 million, is Thiago, because he is that much of a talisman. He's that much of a sort of pinnacle, focal point of a team, of a really good team that can score against anyone. So anyway, that's my sort of thoughts there. Quickly on Brighton.
Yeah.
I still just think Gross is an amazing pick. I was disgusted, by the way, again, as an obsessive person. I cannot stand that shit. Like the fact that they didn't give that penalty just because it's 4-0. They didn't give the penalty because it's 4-0. Are you like cutting your nails or something?
No. I just I won't.
I just thought that's an interesting time to choose to cut your nails, and just mid painting your nails.
No, there's something in front of me that I needed to tweak, but we can carry on.
What was I saying? Yeah, like, you know what I mean? I just, all I want in any game, in any sport, in any game, the only thing I want is rules that we all know exist, and that we just abide by the rules of the game. And then everything's right in the universe. So as much as it can be, everything's right. Because even just from a football point of view, we don't know. Brighton might end up going down on goal difference, or not getting Champions League on goal difference, or same for Villa, whatever. You cannot. It really pissed me off that. I don't give a shit if it's 4-0 or 10-0. It's a penalty. So just do your job and just give the penalty and move on. We don't care about emotions. We don't care if someone's sad. We don't care if someone's getting fired. You've got to stick to the rules. It really pissed me off. So Gross just been robbed there. I mean, maybe he missed the penalty, but I'm getting angry now talking about him, winding myself up.
No. I think it's definitely in the top 3 or 4 most annoying things that happened this weekend, along with Njaya points. And I can't pretend to say anything about that because I didn't watch that one. So I've got nothing to really deliberately add other than, yes, that bothered me. But yeah, no, it seemed clear enough, didn't it? Was Promise on the pitch, by the way, at that time? I'm just curious.
I don't know, actually. I don't think so.
No, I don't know. I wasn't sure if he was the one that was shoved over or anything, but I don't think so.
But yeah, I genuinely, you know what I mean? Obviously, it's doubly annoying that I own the player, but it's more about the rules. I wouldn't care if I didn't own the player. I just want the rules to be right. It's just, you just can't do that.
I think that game in particular as well has probably done something quite important this week. I can tell you that if that game had not been the paddling or hiding that it was.
That's word of the week, isn't it? Paddling. That's just things that go around like bloody.
Was it Jasper?
I think it's above average that you start using it all the time, and it just goes around. It spreads like a contagion.
Exactly. Well, they can create trends. Actually, as we saw last time, I did the the average size penis thing, and it didn't blow up until they got wind of it, which is a testament to how popular they are. Quite rightly so. Actually, weirdly enough, CryptoPop Dan is in the chat. There we are. Is that the first time I've seen Dan? So hello to him.
No, it's not. It's not the first time. I remember you, Dan. Don't worry.
Welcome back, then, Dan. No, that's good. I was going to say that I have a feeling that there would have been quite a few people. There's a lot of bench dilemmas this week, and I think there would be quite a few people who would have potentially benched one of their Arsenal players this week. Whereas now they very probably won't. So, like a Solis or a defender that they're not certain that's going to start, I'm that 99%, blah, blah, blah. But I think that's kind of saved quite a few people in my head because they probably would have benched Solis and that sort of thing. We'll come back to your thoughts on that, but it's an hour in, and I don't think I've actually said, if you're enjoying this content, listening to Danny and us muse away
far too much, sorry.
After game week 1, then please do consider hitting the like button. All it is a physical manifestation or virtual. Well, we can work that out afterwards, of whether you actually do enjoy this. So if you do that, push buttons in the nice sense, and we'd enjoy that. Slip in a little comment here and there, especially after the stream, by the way, because it's always nice to get. I think one of the problems we have is that often we get comments during the stream because we don't actually get any afterwards in the post video. So log on late, go back in there. If your wife says, "Oh, what are you doing?" Just say, "Look, it's very important. I've got to log in and ask questions, or sign up for the Patreon, or whatever it is that you feel like you need to do. Don't let me push you into anything." Then do go ahead and do that. That'd be absolutely lovely. Someone said S&M FPL. I'm not going to go down that direction because, as usual, I will get in trouble. I feel like this is probably is there anything else you want to sort of housekeeping tidy up on? And
I just want to talk about.
I know that we could talk about every game, but
I want to talk about a couple of things just quickly, because I found interesting. So one thing that's just worth thinking about for Arsenal, there's been a lot of tacticos talking, and I've seen like John McKenzie, for example, and various others sharing that this sort of change of approach. And I think it's going to be really interesting watching Arsenal from this point of view and what impact it has on the team, on the defence, on how they play. There's this sort of suggestion that Arsenal are basically, letting go a little bit in terms of the ultimate control and just allowing the opposition to have the ball a bit more, and then using those periods to rest a little bit more. So that they're essentially, the suggestion was that Arsenal, they're taking these little opportunities to rest while out of possession and not necessarily press so intensely for the 90 minutes. And they've got various other means and tactics of kind of still keeping the game under control and then getting the ball back. I just thought it was really interesting, just sort of lower possession thing. And the sort of the suggestion, because I said, what does it look like for Arsenal? Like when with Arteta, that level of intensity that they went on last year was just too much. And for it to be kind of a long-term strategy that works as a manager and as a team, if you want to be at the top for the next 4 or 5 years, like you just can't keep that up. You can't keep it up psychologically. The players will get bored of it. It's like, all right, boss, chill out. You know what I mean? We won the league last year. But from what we see in terms of the tacticos, it looks like, which is a very good sign for me for Arsenal in terms of, mitigating that slightly is that Arteta himself maybe has chilled out a bit and been like, okay, we can change our approach now. I can think a bit more freely. Let's let go a little bit. We don't need total control throughout the game. There are other ways to win the game. So just this idea of just having a little bit, just chilling out a little bit on the control and the possession. So I just think that's really interesting, because what does that look like? Does that mean that we see them more attacking? Does that mean that we see kind of players like Calafiori or White just play more often, or just have more license, and there's just a little bit more of a bit more directness? Because that's what we're talking about with this lower possession players, more directness. So when you do get the ball, move quickly in transition, fire the ball forward. Yeah, so I just think that could be really interesting. Could be really interesting for their attackers. We could see them get more chances. They might concede a few more chances if they've got less possession, but you know what I mean? So it's just something to keep an eye on. And I think that's quite interesting. It's interesting for players like Solis, who look really good. And obviously Saka if he's fit. But yeah, I think Calafiori, White, they're the two I've got this week. And yeah, unless I hear that Timber is likely to start, those two are just absolutely nailed now. So that's interesting from the Arsenal point of view. I don't know if you want to say anything on that game before I just also want to talk quickly about Newcastle and Liverpool, really.
No, we can pretty much move on. I think you're right though. It's I mean, I'm quite happy with having one of the attackers in. Obviously, lots of good things to say about Solis. Obviously, disappointing that he didn't make 90 or anything like that. But again, there's a bit of game state in there. One would hope. But I think it's quite interesting. It's quite curious that I've mentioned bandwagons earlier on. I don't exactly mean that, but it's interesting to me that most people have not thought too much down the line about whether they would actually at some stage consider bringing in a Ben White or something like that. I'm quite curious to see how that develops because, of course, I appreciate you've missed, an awesome game, but let's say for the sake of argument, you had I don't know, maybe an O'Reilly slot. Maybe you're a little concerned about that, etc. And you think I'd be curious to see whether that develops and whether he gets a run of 2, 3, 4, 5 games and it gets to that international break and he's still there and we still don't know anything about Timber. Whether people will ever make that jump to, I mean, obviously some people like yourself have got 2 attacking defenders. I think Eno in the chat, I think has both, for example. So people do. But I'm just curious to see how that develops because
I mean, Arsenal are just, aren't they? They're just weirdly more interesting this year, and just one of the most interesting. Because I know we've got a question on the next page, but we can touch on it now while we're just about Arsenal. They have got so many picks. I mean, we haven't spoken at all about someone like Declan Rice this year, and yet it feels like they've got more picks, so it's like kind of more interesting. I mean, I said, and this is looking like a lot of people are starting to think the same way. I said probably in the first pod of pre-season that I was fairly confident that I wouldn't own Raya once this season. And you can see why. I mean, obviously, there's the obvious thing of kind of Raya is 6 million. And, last season you get Raya, you could get into a ticket into the Arsenal defence and you could get all the DEFCON defenders, like really good DEFCON defenders at 4.5 or 5 and have Raya. Well, but now all the good DEFCON defenders are 5.5 or 6. And we've obviously got goalkeepers who they get more bonus now. They get extra points for whatever it is, bonus for the extra shot in the box, whatever it is. They're basically just a little bit better for saves in terms of points. So yeah, there's that, and I think there's some potentially really good keepers on offer, which we'll talk about separately. But yeah, so then there's the question of Konsa, who at 4.5, if he is nailed, some knowledgeable Arsenal fans who think he will be, by the way, pretty quickly. So that becomes interesting. Could we get by game week 2 or 3? All of these sort of conversations, by the way, link to this, like what do we know and when, and for the next page, and in terms of wildcard 3, people on wildcard 3 and stuff like that. Arsenal is a really interesting one. Konsa, do you go Konsa? I mean, Calafiori, if he's the most likely scenario at the moment for Calafiori is he's just first choice locked left back all season. That's the most likely scenario at the moment, and obviously he could miss the odd game. He looks like he might have gone up a level. I've just said all that stuff about them having that kind of different, a little bit more relaxed, a little bit less obsessive control. So Calafiori's already sort of taken up these positions that are like, wow. And you feel like Arteta will just allow that a little bit more. So could that be even better for someone like Calafiori? Yeah, there's White, there's Timber. We'll see what happens there. There's Gabriel still, who a lot of people think is overpriced, but I think that might be true. But I think that there's so many good cheap midfielders this year that I actually think that the sort of relatively expensive midfielders are more overpriced than Gabriel is. Your Semenyo's, Boumos, when you think about what you can get alternatively in midfield or defence. So yeah, now you've got Solis in the mix at 6.5, who looks incredible. And we haven't even talked about Saka yet, who Saka might just be back to his best. Saka might have had a decent rest. Saka might be back. Havertz could just be locked. Like Gyökeres might just get sacked off. Havertz has probably got the best goal and assist per 90 record of any player in the league, apart from Haaland or something for the last year. So it's a ridiculous record. So choosing your Arsenal players is very, very interesting.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see what kind of what the fixtures look like in that regard. Just having a little peek now, but obviously Villa away, Chelsea at home, Sunderland away, Brighton at home. Just a popular time to wildcard will be this kind of 5 to 6 type time when, as well as, well, we'll talk about the other strategy bits in a minute. Brighton away, Leeds at home, Forest away, Everton at home. Okay, so fine, yeah. Yeah, interesting. Should we wrap up on doing a bit on Newcastle, Liverpool, and then we'll go on to any questions that we haven't covered?
Yeah, and it's not even anything like necessarily major that I wanted to say there. I'm sure we've missed out some bits.
Oh,
by the
yeah.
way. Yeah, I think it's fine because thinking about the players and stuff. I mean, just before I forget, because it's sort of linked to some of the players I might talk about from Newcastle, but again, thinking about what we find out, there's also lots of things that have revealed themselves this week that of like potential players in the future that we weren't thinking about at all pre-season, that might be really good. Again, it's just something that's kind of nice to have a few more extra weeks. And so some of those from Newcastle, I mean, Fulham, we went past Fulham. You forgot to say the players you were sort of thinking about, like Garcia up front. Didn't he get 90 minutes? I mean, and he scored. He looks like potentially really, again, with Fulham, the way Fulham are playing, if they're setting out to just go all out attack every game, he could be really good at 6 million.
Yeah.
Josh King at 5.5. The quotes from the manager after the game. So he scored again, and he's always been, he's the guy who was generational last season. All anyone described him as, the Fulham fans were generational, like the best player they've ever seen. All Fulham fans said he's like the best player they've ever seen at the club. And he scored some amazing goals last season. And suddenly it looks like he's got a manager who actually just fully believes, like, he's not bothered about age. He's just like, yeah, this guy's playing every game. He said after the game, I can't remember the exact quotes, but they were like, yeah, Josh King's ridiculous footballer. Like, I haven't seen a footballer like him at that age for a long time. I mean, amazing quotes. He's 5.5. So that could get very interesting, by the way. So I just wanted to say that, and then obviously thinking about Newcastle and players like Wissa. I mean, Wissa, did you see the game?
Not all of it, no, just highlights, yeah.
So it's a complete unknown, really, Newcastle, but they were very impressive considering what's happened there. They were right up for it. That's the most telling thing from that game, is like how the players respond to the manager and what they looked. And there's a lot of hugging the manager and a lot of like real sort of camaraderie there. And Wissa was right up for it. And even Alanga, he's not my sort of pick in FPL. I like the idea of Wissa though, if he's getting good minutes, because we know he's done it before. Like, great finisher, probably on penalties.
He got 90, didn't he?
Yeah, not 90, I don't think, but he got like 84, 85. I think so. I think I remember seeing him come off. I'm not sure. But anyway, he's not played for a while, so he will start getting good minutes. I mean, their fixtures are unbelievable coming up. And then there's Chow again. Chow again, who I mentioned last week, that I quite like, just because he's just so good for DEFCON, and he's good in the air and he's good at attacking. So I think he got DEFCON again, Chow. Can't remember. I should probably look at these things before we pod. But
so Wissa did get 90, and he might have come off on 90, I don't know. But he got 1 XG as well, didn't he? So
did he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Liverpool was a weird one, because I don't really know what to take from it. I know that they've come under a lot of stick, but there's a really, really tough game that they won on the XG quite comfortably. From what I can remember, it was like 2.37 or 2.4 to like 1.6 or something. So it wouldn't have been. They deserved a draw based on what I saw and based on the numbers in a very difficult game in terms of like just the whole scenario. I was just glad to see Isak get 90 minutes. I still quite like what I saw. I just thought it was a really difficult game for him, and I know I still quite like what I saw. I still felt like he was there. There was a lot of occasions when he was screaming for the ball and he had good chances and he just didn't get it. I mean, Gakpo, for one, he's just unable to look up half the time and play the right pass. So we'll wait and see on Isak. I sort of low key still feel good. It's a little bit like the Palmer thing, where I think fitness is just like the most important thing, because I think he does have that natural arrogance and he does have that natural incredible ability that we've all forgotten about, just how good he is at finishing and stuff. So he could go off a little bit, but yeah, obviously Liverpool, it's a weird one. I mean, Wirtz is a weird one, isn't it? I don't know what's going to happen with Wirtz. I don't know if he's going to be obviously no one knows, but I don't know if he is ultimately just going to be a bit of a flop. But what I do know is you just can't. We talk about Sangare and stuff for 38 million on these sort of guys. I just don't think you can buy small men from the German league for £100 million anymore. It's just like a bonkers business decision for me.
Yes, the purchase of small men is
Yeah,
a risky one.
a small man from the Farmersliga. It's probably got a 50% chance of succeeding. So it's a crazy business decision. It's over 100, it's £116 million. I don't care how good the player is. The Premier League is bonkers. It's so physical, so intense, so it's unbelievable.
Well,
So,
I mean, the size of man, it's a risk on the other side as well. I mean, we all saw Fulkrug. I mean, he was a very big man, but yeah, no good either. Although he did score an incredible, like an effective penalty at the weekend. He's back playing for Werder Bremen, I think.
Fulkrug didn't care though. He just wanted to go back home. He just wanted to be home for Christmas for like 4 months, just shots of vodka.
He's picked up a couple of paychecks. He spent some time in London and Milan. He's back there now.
He was on like vodka and tiramisu and stuff for breakfast. You know what I mean? He just didn't give a shit.
Don't talk to me about tiramisu, the goat of all desserts. Oh, yeah. Wonderful, wonderful thing. But no, just very quickly to pick up a couple of things, and then we'll move on. But I think people know this already, but I think Wissa and Garcia are two good examples of players that will be really interesting from around in a few weeks' time.
Really interesting, yeah.
Garcia, for example, in Fulham. I'm sure everyone knows this by this point, but game week 6 through to 8, Ipswich, Hull, and Coventry, and then Villa, by the way, which might be just as good in a row, which is incredible, obviously. But also Newcastle was, Tiao 15 Defcon. Wissa got 8, by the way, for a striker, which is mad in itself, because he does do a lot of front pressing, doesn't he, and that sort of thing. So he could be quite interesting in itself. And both of those strikers mentioned are in and around 1xG, so that's very interesting. And as you say, Newcastle fixtures,
yeah. Soboslai, by the way, just on that game before we move on, like a lot of people saying, "Oh, I just saw nothing from him," and that's just not how I saw it at all. Just people are like, "Oh yeah, no, he doesn't do anything in open play, or I didn't see anything from him. He's just got the avenues, or he's just got the set pieces." I'm like, you need to flip. In my opinion, you need to flip that round. Like, start with the avenues. The guy is just the best player on the pitch every single time. He's just strolling around. He's dictating things at his pace. He kind of changes the game when he wants to or when he needs to, when he thinks he needs to make a difference. Yes, he's on all set pieces. He's 90 minutes locked. He's on penalties. And now, I think based on all the quotes and stuff, and based on him taking that one, of course he might give Isak the odd one, but I think he's just going to stay on penalties. I mean, yeah, his free kicks are also amazing. It's a small point, but I think this guy probably will score 2 or 3 free kicks this season. Wouldn't surprise me. Like as a base, all 3 that he took, genuinely, I know it's just like ifs and buts. It's kind of a daft thing to say, but if there's about 3 free kicks that if each one of them had been 6 inches higher, they would have all gone in. And he knew it. He knows it. That's the fine margins. He's so good at those free kicks. But yeah, Soboslai is ridiculous. Unfortunately, it's just an absolute set and forget lock. Ridiculous pick.
Yeah. No, terrific. And I also think he has the look of the kind of man where if he wanted to wander into your life and just, and take your partner away from you, you couldn't do anything about it. He's got that kind of class / swagger about him where you just think there's nothing I can do here. What am I going to do? I can't stand in the way. I'm just going to have to, if anything, I'll just, you just pack their bags for them and make the whole process a little bit easier. So
yeah, get the lube out.
I mean, not my case, obviously. I'm fine, but other people, I'm sure. Before we move on, I'm just going to highlight this comment from Ian in the chat. So I am 1974. He says, and he's a wise man. Join Patreon or /Discord, people. Excellent space. Free cheese scone recipes as well. That is partially true. I didn't actually put the recipe in there, but thank you very much, Ian. If people want to pay top dollar for cheese scone recipes, we will make it happen. So that is there from me, and now I can't get that comment off the screen, but I will do. There we go. Very good. Let's we'll bring up some questions, some of which we've covered already, because I'm aware that I can't talk about them all day long. But here we are. What I'm going to do, I'm going to skip a couple. So have we learned anything from Game Week 1? Well, I think we've talked about that enough. Causes for concern, Spurs. Oh, yeah, okay. Is there anything you want to add to that? So that question from Biff Tannen, who I'm pretty sure I've heard of you before in Back to the Future. But is there anyone we haven't mentioned there that genuinely worry you? You know, you've watched them Game Week 1 and you're like, oh, okay, like, run for the hills, sell them immediately, that sort of thing.
Wait, so Biff Tannen wasn't you? I was just assuming it was you.
Look, we don't need to do that now.
Right. Okay. Cool. Because I just also I was when I saw that I was just laughing to myself. I just said the name Biff. I was like Biff Tannen, just talking to myself in the kitchen. Fraser just reminded how hilarious that name is. What a name, Biff Tannen. What a film! What an incredible, legendary film. So yeah, I've completely not listened to a word you've said, and because I was just typing a message to you in the chat, by the way, and so I've not heard. All I heard was Biff Tannen. So, are there any causes for concern following Game Week 1? Causes for concern. No Brentford attack. United bad. I think it's too soon. Really, I don't think so. United is the biggest cause for concern. I'm a United fan, so I'm a little bit like I'm sort of naturally concerned. Hopefully, it's nothing to worry about too much. I've sort of talked about that already. So yeah, we'll have to see with that one. I don't know. Can you think of any causes for concern? I'm not.
Yeah, I think it's more. I'm just trying to think of the players where people will genuinely immediately watch them and think, oh, okay, all my expectations have been, you know, overturned or whatever it is. I mean, the probably one for me, which I'm willing to give a few weeks to see what happens when they have a stable team, is probably my expectations of Tottenham from the off were just a bit high, and obviously it was a really, really difficult initial game. So that's to be expected. I think what it is, isn't it? I generally have this kind of mindset of I try not.
Sorry, I'm still laughing at Biff Tannen. Go on.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. Classic though, isn't it? Absolute classic. The man, the meathead man. I tend not to hyper focus on one game week, and I was trying to think more about 6, and that's why Van Hecker was someone I really wanted to bring in. But yeah, I think giving a couple of weeks. This is why this week's quite a nice one, you know, because it's a difficult. It's not, and maybe as easy a game as it initially looked a couple of weeks ago. Newcastle at home, and I'm in a position where I'm quite happy to bench one of my Spurs. So if things don't come good by Game Week 4, then it might be something I consider moving around. You know, because Game Week 4 is a week where you might think, okay, well, is Palestra okay? Is someone else okay? You know, is there something to do there? But generally, defense is not something I want to fiddle with too much. I think there's going to be more interesting moves elsewhere. So yeah, Spurs was probably the one slightly wobbly one. Not this is the same conversation at all, but I am a little bit annoyed about myself that I felt so good about Leeds through the summer, and I really feel now that I would have been quite happy just to save that 500,000 and double up on that defense, or even get Trafford, because I would have loved to have Trafford, and he was someone I thought about a lot more than most. Well, what seems like most people, and I really, really like. He just feels like I think on wildcard, whenever that happens, he feels to me like I might well just spend the extra 500,000 and just put him there, because I really do like seeing him there. He's in my draft team for the one that I've done already, and I immediately feel a sense of calm, and I like. You know how that makes me feel. I like the calm. So Trafford, I think, is going to come in at some point, but obviously can't use transfer on that really. So we've already sort of talked about bandwagons, but is there anyone you want to add to that conversation from that question from FPL Wet Beaver?
Yeah, just on that, in terms of like what we know and what we don't know, just to kind of covering the first 2 questions just quickly again, just a small point. It's like there's a lot of things where I don't know. There's a lot of areas where we still don't really know anything. Like, so Liverpool is one. We just talked about Liverpool then, but I don't feel like I've really learned anything about Liverpool apart from the penalties. So that's in terms of like thinking about just all these questions in one. By the way, so just saying it quickly, but And also Man City. So I just wanted to talk about City quickly, because I'm going to answer that question about bandwagons quite quickly in a second. But I also think City, we just have no idea what's going on there yet. I still don't buy into Cherki, really. People just think Turkey's going to start now. I'm not sure that that's the case. I'm not sure, because we just know that, like, obviously he's amazing when he comes on the pitch, but the reason Cherki doesn't start is because he's crap off the ball. Doesn't do anything off the ball. Clearly, that's why he doesn't play. That's why he just never plays. So,
yeah, I mean, actually, it's interesting you say that, because I think it was on FPL earlier. I was listening to this. Maybe you have or haven't heard this one this week, but Walsh was going absolutely bananas for him, and he would bring him in as a priority over Soboslai, which that's why you haven't been invited, Walsh, even though we think you're really good. That's just crazy talk.
yeah. Look, it's a bit like, there's so many players like that. You have to do so much. If you have no avenues, you have to do so much. So much has to go right. You know, it's a bit, I talking about FML. I was on, like, when I was on Fireside with Alan, we're talking about minutes. We talked about minutes a lot. So you have to get the minutes. So the biggest question is minutes. You have to get them. That's the hardest thing. We have no idea if Cherki's going to get them. As a good example, as Man City players have always been, Foden and stuff like that. That's the hardest thing, is that they get the minutes. Is he going to become a 90-minute player? Unlikely, but very unlikely, to be honest. And we're talking about a nailed player. We're talking about that players who play every game, you know, better than players that don't. Is he going to become that? No. So you've got to get the minutes with a player like that. You've got to actually get the minutes first, and that's unlikely. And if you get them, you then also have to be good.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge amount of bets, and then not only do you then have to be good, but then as a Cherki, you have to be pretty ridiculous. You'd have to be getting regular returns, couple of returns here and there, because you're getting no other avenues. You're not getting DEFCON. You know, you're probably not going to score as well. You need to be getting a lot of returns, especially when you're coming off early. There's guys who are 6 million who are going to get guaranteed DEFCON, and, you know, or they're just talismanic players who have got penalties and they've got 90 minutes and they've got all these avenues, like Njai, you know, or even if it's like Dewsbury Hall. This is the reason why, although those guys like your Boomos and stuff, they have to do so much to be worth the money, and a lot of that plays out in people's heads. It's a fantasy. It's a fugazi. It's not even there. It's just poof. It's not happening. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
Cherki is like that. He's just a fugazi in people's heads. He could be great. He could be, but the chances are low, because you have to get the minutes first, which is difficult and unlikely, and then you have to also be good. I remember Flapjack, was it last season or the season before? You know, he made this massive bet because he decided, like, Rico Lewis was going to be amazing. He'd be amazing if he plays every game. My God, Man City, Pep Guardiola's Man City, Rico Lewis out of position, OOP. I think he's going to play and all this. And it was kind of hilarious. And he actually ended up being right. He had Rico Lewis for like the first 15 weeks of the season when no one else in the world owned him. So he'd made this massive bet to get Rico Lewis in the team, which was great because he actually got it right. He actually got the minutes, but he was crap. He wasn't even good. So yeah, because you have to win both bets. So the idea that someone like Cherki is just like a great player all of a sudden to me is bonkers. But again, that does link to kind of, I'm using the word again because it took people talking about in the Discord, but my kind of heuristics of my approach to the game is you've got to do an awful lot to get into the conversation for me, because it's just I don't even know how we got on this discussion. This is just me going off on one talking about City and stuff.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
But no, Cherki and City, etc. But I'm going to put this chat on the screen because so that I don't say it and it ruins things for the algorithm.
Scene of the crime. Scene of the crime.
Maybe Defender. I couldn't agree more. Not only, well, mainly in FPL, but I mean, actually, this Fugazi chat, I'm going to get in trouble here. Because I will take us off in a dangerously alt rock, alt punk direction from the 1990s. But do check Fugazi out; they were quite a decent band back in the day. But yeah, the danger of this is a very niche joke for about one person in the chat. The danger of being a repeater, which is one of their albums. than Cherki minutes, as you say. For me, haven't been. I think I've owned him twice, and both times he got benched immediately. So that just tells you everything you need to know. And I hate those kind of picks anyway. But well, hopefully he can do bits for someone else, basically. But we shall see. We shall see.
Just to finish on the Cherki, someone in the chat saying like, but he's a great player, or do we agree he's a great player? Of course, he's a great player and he's a great talent. He does amazing things, but in the modern game, to be a great player, you have to do more than just be like brilliant at dribbling the ball and brilliant at passing the ball. You have to do more. I mean, from what we've seen so far, he clearly hasn't done more. Otherwise, he'd be starting every game already. It's the off the ball stuff that we don't really see as much. So you've got to do it. You've got to do it all, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy, but I don't believe that he's ever going to be a 90-minute player for a top team, to be honest with you. Like, not in a way that affects FPL anyway. But we shall see. Thank you, by the way. One or two people actually did congratulate me on my Fugazi joke there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, well done. Let's just enter the bandwagon one quickly, shall we?
Yeah, I mean, we more or less already have. I mean, but I'll just give my point and then I'll hand over to you. But essentially, no, there are almost no bandwagons that I would want to immediately break the roll with. But then I can see. I saw someone earlier in the chat said that they've got $1 million in the bank, and they have. Maybe they've got double Brighton actually, but they had Gomez and they were just wondering whether to use. I can see that. Maybe if especially if you had to play him, then maybe that would be a temptation. The
problem is the problem is even at the best of times, like you want to roll that stronger, especially at the start of the season. You want to save transfers, etc., etc. We don't know a lot, so just because Sangare was good first week doesn't actually mean he's going to be a good pick, or certainly the same with the Cuyper and so on and so on. But even more so this season, we've got all these big hurdles to get over. We've got these sort of big hurdles to navigate in a kind of different way than we ever had before, because of this fact that we don't have any of these really consistent runs of good fixtures outside of like probably Newcastle coming up, to be fair. But these teams don't have great fixtures. We've got these big hurdles that involve big switches, that involve big hitters. So and loads of things will go wrong as well in that time. Loads of things will happen as well in that time. So you're going to need everything you can in terms of transfers. What I mean is to navigate. You've got game week 3, where Man City, you've got Coventry home. It doesn't matter which chip strategy you're on, because all of the different chip strategies and players that you've got, you're either good in one week and bad in the other. You know what I mean, or whatever. You're not good in both. So we've got triple City against Coventry, and then the following week we've got Chelsea, potentially triple Chelsea or whatever, double, triple Chelsea at home to Hull. So not only do we have to navigate that, but you think about the value of those transfers. I mean, again, in terms of a bet that you're making, it's a much better bet to use a transfer on a Man City player playing Coventry at home or a Chelsea player playing Hull at home than it is on someone you think might go up 0.1 or a bandwagon, or someone you think had a good game week 1 like Sangare, who's a defensive midfielder, or a Brighton fullback who's got dodgy minutes. What I mean? It's a much better bet. It's better for minutes and it's better for output in terms of what you're spending your transfer on. So yeah, that's the short answer. I don't need to say any more than that, do I?
No. That's good. That's interesting. I think what we'll do, we'll have a quick peek over it. There's been a few questions that are strategy related. I think next week we might give this a touch more time, because of course game week 3 is sort of chip heavy. Not chip heavy, but it's interesting for a couple of reasons. Some people were looking at wildcards, some people were looking at free hit. All I'm going to do very briefly is just to have a quick look at some sort of advanced warning drafts that people have. In some cases, people have gathered for me, because Pete was looking into this a little bit earlier. I've called him Canadian Pete. Maybe there was another Pete that was going to put a question. I decided against it, but Canadian Pete, Polish Pete, barbecue Pete, all sorts of Pete. But we will mention you and bring up this. So this is the Solio standard free hit draft, I think, in game week 3. I will just read it out so that audio knows what's being suggested at this point in time. Kelleher, Gvardiol, Collins, and Ayer. Is Collins anyway? No, we'll come back to that. Saka, Wirtz, Semenyo, Szoboszlai, Buendia. Oh, Haaland, captain, and Isak. And then on the bench, we've got a bunch of grunts, basically. Lecomte, Egan, Giles, and Vola Egg. Well, that guy, basically, from Ipswich. I can't actually read the name on my screen for whatever reason. But Vola something anyway. Yeah, so that's interesting because you, I guess, are a little bit more in tune with the concept of free hit 3, and it might be something that you duck into, or maybe even more. That what this draft doesn't have O'Reilly, which I'm immediately thinking why. So that's the immediate thing that jumps out at me. And which Liverpool picks you go for, I think by that point we should have a bit more clarity, but don't know whether Wirtz would be someone. Well, we'll see. But what's your immediate thoughts looking at that?
I'm trying to think of this conversation, sort of thinking about free hit 3 at the same time as people who are not on free hit as well, I suppose. I suppose thinking also about people on wildcard. I don't know. It's kind of two discussions. So I know we're not going to discuss wildcard, but yeah, I mean, Isak, I'd have Szoboszlai, I'd have Haaland, I'd have. Right now, Wirtz probably not, to be honest. But I think we've seen the two Liverpool centre backs, both of them look pretty good for DEFCON. Could be worth just spreading there and having another defender. I wouldn't go triple Brentford defence, just too much. But I would have Kelleher. I would have maybe one of the defenders. Haven't really given this a great deal of thought. I really like Buendia as a pick on paper, but obviously Villa have got absolutely nothing. I think they even played like up front pretty much, Buendia, didn't he, in the last game, or he certainly played some minutes there, which is not actually good for him. Like he's just a 10. He's a good 10. I mean, if it was a decent Villa team, it was looking like that was quite interesting. Buendia pre-season, it was looking like a good pick because he was that sort of guy who had loads of avenues. I'm just trying to think of some of the other options. I mean, right now, again, based on what we've seen, well, Newcastle have got Bournemouth at home.
So that was the one that jumped out at me as well. Yeah,
Wiss is interesting, isn't he? Straight away, very interesting. Brighton have got Leeds at home. I mean, Leeds are good, but Brighton are just good against anyone. I mean, to gross at 5.5, if you do need cash, it's just really, really nice still. I just still really like it. I still really like him as a pick. And if you want to go Hinchelwood, fine. 5.5. I still think gross is a better pick from someone who wrote Hinchelwood last season, by the way. But
and obviously funds permitting. I mean, this draft wouldn't touch, say, a Bruno, but you could easily plug that in depending on how.
Well, exactly.
I'm guessing the funds are stretched, but
exactly. And so that's what does that look like? I mean, because you've got gross 5.5 at home to Leeds, you've got Sangare maybe 5.5 at home to Sunderland. You've got Buendia. Again, I'm not really bothered. I don't go into games fearful of players like Semenyo, rightly or wrongly. I'm just not that bothered. The avenues, I just don't feel like I just don't feel fearful. No one's going to captain him. You'd have to haul to do well. So, I mean, basically what I'm saying is I still think someone like Bruno is miles better. I'm not going to change my mind on Bruno after one game. I still think someone like Bruno is miles better than Semenyo and Saka and stuff like that. If you can fit him in, he's got Everton away.
Yeah, I'd immediately look at this draft as well and think, well, okay, virtually the same price. Surely you could, turning something like a Wirtz into Thiago, for example, or a Buendia into a Wissa. Seems like a pretty reasonable bet to take. Triple Brentford, it's one of those things, isn't it? I know it's perfectly permissible to back a triple up on free hit defense, etc. I don't know whether I would want to, but I mean, I can see the logic there. They are good at home,
If De Cuyper, if we get, I don't know what information, I don't know how we'll actually get this information, but if De Cuyper is looking just like pretty nailed on the left wing as well, he's got to be in. They've got Leeds at home. I mean, De Cuyper's just, again, we don't know about his minutes, but he's a crazy player. I don't know what the hell's going on with De Cuyper. Like, how is it that basically every single time he plays in the front three, he scores at least 2 returns, like every single time? He's like an insane player. And he got like 1.7 XG or something. He's got the highest XG of any player this weekend.
Oh, I know. Hopefully no one's going to go back and cut what I said about him in the preseason pods up to ruin me. I don't think anyone listens to me anyway, but the Yeah, I basically said, okay, yeah, he does get forward quite a lot and get into great positions, but he doesn't know what to do with it once he gets. We don't need to know what you, so we don't need to worry about thinking about it when you're a yard out. I think that's probably the takeaway from that. But I mean, just on this draft, I won't go on for too long because we're not going to talk about it now. But just for people to kind of get the cogs turning a little bit, I mean, I plucked this just from our Discord, where I think it was JP. So thank you very much, JP. Not João Pedro. He didn't email me. But this would be a game week 3 wildcard draft that he was just tinkering with a planned move, if I remember correctly, of Semenyo to Palmer. He immediately picking Jack A there is going to rile Danny, I should imagine, quite correctly, I suspect. But
no, I don't. We've seen Jack A get good minutes now in the first game. I mean, we needed that in the first game. He's not like a fantastically robust pick, but at the moment he looks first choice and he looks like he's really solid. It looks like he's good for DEFCON and stuff, so I don't mind that. I mean, O'Reilly is a significant thing about the free hit and the chips that week. Part of it for me has been like, I'm not going into Coventry at home without O'Reilly. But at the moment, it's looking a little bit more iffy. I mean, I think even if they move things around, even if whatever, if Cherki does start or if whatever, I still think O'Reilly, my opinion would be that I still think he's pretty nailed in that team. So he either just plays in midfield or he plays left back. He's too good. He's too good to drop for anyone. So I still think he's pretty locked, and I still think I'd want him because I think no matter where he plays, he still just finds those positions. Like I wouldn't be remotely bothered if he was playing left back. He's still an incredible pick. He's still going to be able to get there in the box all the time, and he's so good in the air. So I would want him, and obviously I'm someone who's likely going to be on free hit 3.
Yeah, just on that, actually, the two things. A quick bit of housekeeping. I should have read this out for audio, but if anyone's interested in a wildcard 3 draft, like I said, there are various caveats with this particular draft. It's not a suggestion; it's just a discussion draft. But goalkeeper Verbruggen, Jake Vuskovic, O'Reilly at the back, Semenyo, Njai, Gibbs White. We'll talk about Njai at some point, maybe. Szoboszlai, Sangare, Wissa, and Haaland captain, obviously. 4.0 keeper, I'm guessing. Calafiore, Concert, and João Pedro on the bench with a planned move of, Semenyo to Palmer, as mentioned. Just a quick question, actually, because someone did mention it, and I'll just drag back a bit. I haven't thought about this at all because, of course, I don't need to. But the idea of pivoting from free hit 3 to wildcard 3, I'm just curious to see what your reaction would be there, because obviously you're probably on a free hit 3. If you're convinced of enough kind of long-term picks and the price changes are sort of harrying, and you think, I'm going to want them next week anyway, is there any chance that you change?
I just think for me it's unlikely because I don't really need to. I mean, maybe that's someone who was sort of planning that strategy and maybe doesn't have Palmer or something. I mean, first of all, there's nothing really wrong with wildcard 3. It is a different conversation now. Like I've said all season I don't particularly like it in terms of booking it in terms of like that strategy of just been like going into the season. I didn't like that strategy of not having Haaland and not having Palmer. I just didn't get it because I just thought having Palmer just gives you so many more options in terms of your chip strategy, and it's still just his team's still great. So I just didn't get it. Whereas if you went all in, for me, I know it's more complicated than that, but for me personally, it's Palmer is the significant point because so if you went without Haaland and you went without Palmer, you're pretty locked in wildcard 3. Now again, it's fine. It could work out really well. It's a different conversation now because you're going in, you're going to have 2 free transfers, your wildcard, your team. Well, touch wood, especially having got rid of your bench boost, it should be fine for at least 2 to 3 weeks in most scenarios. So therefore, you then suddenly get to 4 or 5 transfers, and that's the whole point of the strategy because then you're in a very strong position because you can then switch things around if it all goes well. So it can work fine. It's just that I think maybe you do have to switch quite a bit around because I think it's quite early to know, all that sort of stuff. So it's fine in itself. For me, I always wanted to at least try to sort of pencil to have the option and try to go to 6 or 7 if it worked well. And so that's why the whole reason why it sort of worked nicely for me. And the Palmer draft was, it just gives you that option. You've got João Pedro, you've got Palmer, you can free hit in 3, and then you've already got double Chelsea at home to Hull. You can bring in one more easily. You've got free hit 3, so you can get O'Reilly, which would have been very difficult, as well as maybe a third City, as well as Haaland captain, who you don't have, etc., etc. It all looks really nice, and it's a really nice week for the free hit because it's Chelsea against Arsenal. I mean, it's a really big one, that, because we're talking Chelsea. I love it. I love Chelsea this year because I don't like tripling up on defence, but I'm all for doubling up on tripling up on attack if I really believe in a team. So we've got players there who are just absolute gifts. We're talking about players in Pedro, Palmer, and Rodgers, who for the most part are going to be nailed for 85 minutes or more every single game. There's no Europe every week. They're a gift. No Europe. All those guys are going to be nailed. There's no reason for them not to be absolutely nailed. You know, obviously there's fitness stuff, but you know what I mean. So I can't remember what I was going to say now. I just got a text, but yeah. So that was kind of a separate point, but you know, I just think it works nicely for me to sort of work a bit longer to go. You know, obviously you've got that. I think it's game week. Yeah, it's game week 4. Obviously United play City. I think it's 4. Just I think that should be quite a tough game for City. I think we tend to do pretty well in those games. And then obviously, yeah, you've got the option of having Fernandes against Fulham in 5, and etc. etc. So the other point was like, I just don't. I don't think the free hit is all that valuable in the first half of the season. Yes, it's good for, and I did the same last season, where you sort of keep it as a backup. It's nice to have in your back pocket going into Christmas in case you get absolutely ransacked and suddenly you've got 7 players injured, and a lot of them are just for 1 week. You've got that in your back pocket. But that's an unlikely scenario. And we've got this ability at the moment to roll loads of transfers and have a big squad of lots of good players. Pretty much everyone's got a decent squad. You've got all these DEFCON guys that facilitate that. So we're not on these wafer thin benches where you can get shafted really quickly and you need a free hit to bail you out. And there aren't a lot of these fixtures. So that was the point in terms of like Arsenal are a level above everyone. So it's only really when a team plays Arsenal that you're like, oh my God, like this is not great for my players. And actually that fits quite well with Chelsea because they're incredible. And you're happy to triple up and certainly double up. I've got double now. So that's the 1 week where I'd actually play the free hit. I don't think it's that valuable. I don't think we need to hold it that much. And it's the 1 week where I'm like, that's the only week where I'd even consider not having Palmer. I mean, if I was on, honestly, if I was on free hit, I would consider still having Palmer. So I you know, this booking and transfer stuff, it's just one of these model optimal things again. I just don't think it's a very good play. But you know what I mean? So I'd be happy to sort of, not, you know, so it's just a nice week for a free hit where I don't think it just works really well. And the other thing is, in line with that, is every week is so potentially valuable. The nice thing about a free hit in 3 is you get to pick all the team that you want for free, every player you want with really nice fixtures and a bit of a fixture swing, and you buy at least 1 whole extra week of information, which at the moment is huge amounts when you've only had 3 weeks up to that point or 2 weeks up to that point. You know what I'm saying? So you're actually using the chip because for lots of different ways. It's useful in lots of different ways, and it also buys you at least an extra week. But it naturally buys you more than an extra week because the following week is Chelsea at home to Hull. It's not a good game for Fernandes. And so it actually buys you at least 2 weeks, really, the free hit of information in a season when I don't think the free hit is that necessary because we get 2 of them. We don't need it in the first half of the season. We might, but it's unlikely. So that's basically my sort of general point there. But there are other people who don't have Palmer, and I think that's a problem. I think you don't want to be sort of using a free hit and then also having to use 2 or 3 transfers the following week, or scrambling around or selling Bruno Fernandes the next week and you've used a free hit. In many of those scenarios, just use the wildcard then because it's fine, because it'll still be okay. Like I say, we'll have 2 transfers. You can wildcard. We do know a lot of stuff. Get a lot of good picks, and you can build up your transfers.
Yes, I will think about that later.
Well, you're in a different situation. So I do want to say quickly before we go or anything, like, so you're in the Haaland camp, which is different. So you know that the one thing about the Haaland camp is you naturally, theoretically, or whatever, you should definitely go through game week 3. So you've got at least 1 week more than these guys who are locked into a wildcard 3. Because you have Haaland, which is great. You get a whole load of extra information, a lot of extra information on a 3rd week. You also need to decide, because you said you're less likely to use a chip, but are you going to use a triple captain?
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think we will talk about that extensively next week, because I do think it's going to be. I mean, people are ignoring it right now for other reasons, but we have to factor in, no European concerns. So that's obviously huge for minutes, etc. I mean, if there's some good fluency, then it's definitely on the table. Yeah, I mean, I quite like the idea of using it pretty early if I can. So yeah, no issues with it. But let's be honest with you, if they sort of drag out a 0-0 at Crystal Palace at the weekend, then yeah, then the confidence will probably be quite low going into that idea. But yeah, I think it's a good option. I mean, what was it? Was it last year, game week 2? They had a really nice fixture and people used it quite early, and that worked out pretty well. I saved mine until, I don't know, it was quite late on actually, but it was Leeds at home, maybe Sunderland. I don't know, but he did smash
Sunderland,
it. So he did
Sunderland was the one he
really
didn't
well.
do so well. He didn't do so well against Sunderland, but he smashed it in the other two. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had the Leeds one, but I think it was a brace in the end. But good, yeah. The question at the end there, by the way, is a sort of lifestyle one. In a week where most casual managers will roll, what other hobbies are you enjoying? I'm going to finish off the pod with that in 5 minutes, because I don't think our teams will take that much. So I'll come back to that. But quick look, I'll do my team first because there is nothing to talk about. But the team is for the benefit of Spotify types: Kinski, Maguire, Calafiori, Muharemovic, Zolis, Bruno Fernandes, captain. Szoboszlai, Anderson. Anderson, by the way, fine. I think he's training okay. We've seen him on the bikes, doing a bit of movement, chatting up Alex Scott, all of those kind of things. Not the other one, the playing one. Calvert-Lewin, João Pedro, and Haaland. And on the bench, I can't actually read because something's in the way, but Verbruggen, Van Hecke, Gross, and Diop, I think. Yeah, I'm fairly settled that this will be what it is. I know it's a bit of a, what do you call it? Hedging situation there, but I'm not in any hurry to play Van Hecke after last week. So if anything, I'd be more worried about Gross. In fact, I would definitely put Gross first bench thinking about it. I don't know why that's there, but yeah.
Yeah, there's no hedging there, I don't think. You just
It's
doing what you got to do.
Just realistic, yeah.
And
who can bench Muha after the way Leeds look at the moment? I suppose it's more a fear of Brentford, if anything else. They scored about 7 every week. So yeah. So nothing to say there. Some people were obviously talking about captain. I don't know whether we really gave the captaincy discussion much shout, but we can probably do that more with your team because you actually have. Well, I say that. I mean, I've got Haaland, obviously.
you've got more of a decision than I have.
You think so? Yeah. I just wondered whether you'd say that, but I think I'm fairly set on leaving it as it is. I'd like to see how that one pans out, but yeah. Over to yours. Anything you? I suppose you've got a bit more of a benching headache because you've got Calvert-Lewin on the bench. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got much more of a benching headache, which I don't. I like the fact that I have them, but I don't like them. Obviously, none of us do. It's a pain in the ass. But yeah. So at the moment, I've got Kinski, White, Gabriel, Maguire, and Calafiori in defence. Szoboszlai, Anderson, Bruno, captain at the moment. Palmer, vice. Isak, João Pedro, and then on the bench for Bruggen, DCL, Gross, and Diop. So, yeah, I do immediately, just on terms of the captaincy, I do immediately, like I've said already, have Palmer in the same discussion as Bruno and Haaland because I just think I think Palmer's the best pick in the game pretty much. But there is quite a big difference in terms of fixture difficulty. I mean, I quite like that Brighton usually come out and play, but Brighton are just very, very good. And as I say, they've got that sort of fixture level at the moment, and we don't really know quite how good they are. I don't know really, but they really sort of seem to go up a level last year, especially in the games against the bigger teams. So I just find it quite hard to read. I think it'll be a really fun game. I think it'll be a good game. I do think potentially goals at each end, but it's not really enough for me to. I mean, I'm pretty confident Palmer does well, but Brighton is so good that I don't think it's really enough for me to go against Bruno with Ipswich home. But I am worried about United. I am worried. So it's one of them. Yeah, and obviously people might look at it and think, well, you maybe just got to play Calvert-Lewin over Anderson or something like that. I mean, I think it's difficult. A lot of people probably say that I just am one of the people who thinks that Anderson are better than probably most people think. I feel like Anderson's just the player with the higher floor of the two. I think in terms of the avenues and the DEFCON and set pieces, and I feel like his consistency of points is there, but obviously it's very difficult for me to bench a nailed striker on penalties at home. It's very difficult. So I need to feel sort of pretty good about Anderson's minutes, that he's okay now to just go, because Palace away, I think City will win, but I think, obviously it's away from home, could be a little bit scrappy. City are just sort of figuring out the team sheet and stuff like that, and he's probably going to be pretty involved, Anderson. Kind of small pitch stuff. You hope he's going to be pretty scrappy. So it just feels like a decent floor, and I feel like I'd like to go with that floor really, rather than just kind of. But it's difficult when it's a bit painful one, and I think even the Brighton guys are pretty decent on the bench, but I can't. I think you've just got to attack Villa, for example, with the triple defence at the moment. You've just got to go for them go for the jugular while they're down, and just hope that continues a bit. I always worry about Emre just being a good manager and just doing stuff, but they're just. Last season they didn't score for about 6 or 7 games, did they? Do you remember when everyone owned Watkins and stuff and Rodgers? And anyway, so Arsenal just look like they're in cruise control, and I just think it's as I say, I view those defenders as more like attackers. Actually, all of them, but especially White and Calafiori. They're so good as attacking fullbacks that's why White was so locked for me in game week 1. That I actually every game that he's sort of nailed to play, I feel confident and good that he's going to get an attacking return. So I've just got to roll with it. It's horrible though, because it's on Monday night. I go to Spain, by the way, on Tuesday morning. I don't want to be going on holiday after my bloody triple defence gets wiped out on Monday night, like the last kick of the game from Emi Buendia or something. But yeah, it is what it is at the moment. So that's how I'm going at the moment, but it could change with Anderson DCL. That's about it. Any thoughts?
No, I think you're right to go in with the heft with the Arsenal picks. There is a few people who are suggesting that you might consider benching one of them, but I think I'm with you on that one. Personally, I'd leave it exactly as you have it. Really, I think Calvert. You wouldn't be surprised. Of course, this is the problem, isn't it? Like you picked him for a reason. He's probably going to get a return, but.
Well, if I it's painful. If I think he'll probably get return, I'll play him. It's difficult, but I just think, for me, the Arsenal defence, I think you've got plenty. There's too many avenues. Again, I think people are viewing it a different way. They're just so in control, but it just is what it is.
You shouldn't do this, obviously, but I mean, if I look at your team, I'm like, well, who do I think is the weakest pick in your team? It's Maguire. Right, but no, you know what I mean.
No.
Like it's one of those things where you could easily, but then obviously it's a 15-pointer ready to happen potentially. But like if the fixture was played so many times, 10, 100 times, etc., I'd probably lean on he's the weakest. But yeah, you can't do that, can you?
No, I know. It's very difficult. There is an element of a kind of irrational fear of Maguire. Just because, I mean, he literally was our most dangerous player, really, apart from a couple of Bumo chances on the weekend.
Was he? Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, he went up front for a while, didn't he?
Yeah, he just sticks him front for like 20 minutes. I mean, he's just such a threat, and he's so confident, and he took on a shot with his left foot that nearly went in the top corner as well. It's very difficult to bench someone like that with Ipswich at home. Sometimes you've got to go against like your sort of stories in your head and just go, just defend at Ipswich at home, goal threat, just play him, and I've just got to accept any points on the bench, really.
I think I can imagine the masses would bench Anderson.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, but I wouldn't bench Anderson. So that is by the way, nailed on. This not exactly referencing what you're saying in the chat, Jono, but Consa will obviously score this weekend. He'll find a way, even if it's off the bench. So, and then everyone will bring him in annoyingly in game week 3 or something, just so that,
And yeah, if Consa starts, it'll be Mosquera that drops out, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've missed.
That's why Mosquera was a terrible pick game week 1 for me, but I've not seen many people who own him.
Yes. Anyway, ignore what I was about to say. You know what I was going to say. Yeah, we've just climbed over the 2-hour mark, and I apologise to all of those who were banking on putting their baked potato in at 6:30, etc. I did say to someone earlier on we would answer a lifestyle question very quickly before we go, so I will do it. It was during this role this week, assuming you're doing nothing, are you enjoying any other hobbies this week? You can, for example, say if there's a fun television show that you've been doing, or perhaps you've been engaging in cross stitch or badger baiting or basket weaving. you know.
Are you asking me then?
Yeah, I'm asking you.
Oh, right.
Because everyone knows I'm a man of culture. I mean, look at this. But you, it's people aren't really sure. They're not convinced.
No, absolutely not. Rightly so. I mean, I'm in this sort of terrible lifestyle period where I'm drinking too much and not being productive enough and so on.
Oh, you got to go out, haven't you? Sorry.
I'm on holiday all the time and stuff like that. Yeah, that's why I'm having a beer now, because I'm about to go for a meal for my dad's birthday. But yeah, so I'm sort of prepping, you see. So I'm an all or nothing person. So I'm going to Spain next week for a week, and then I come back for a few days. So I'm still off for work for a couple of days after that, and then I'm just going cold turkey, and I'm not drinking for a couple of months at least, and then I can start to enjoy life again and enjoy some of the hobbies and stuff like that. I mean, I bought about 10 books this week, genuinely, and maybe
nice.
more than 10. I can't. So I won't actually start reading properly until that happens, until I come back from holiday, because then I'll sort of be, I like to read when I'm fully sober and just chilling and process it all and stuff like that. But yeah, I bought some really good books. You probably don't want me to bore you with what books they are, but I've got some. I'm really looking forward to some of those. So I've got far too many. So I've got to do absolutely shit loads of reading. But other than that, by the way, no, really. So I've been going out a lot and just enjoying myself, and some nice beers and nice food out and stuff like that. And obviously it's been FPL, so I have just been thinking about FPL all the time. That's what we do, isn't it? Watching Cole Palmer highlights and stuff like that.
Yeah, over and over again. Pass me the flannel. That's what happens in the Dr. Danny household. Not here. It's a dry spell in that regard. But yeah. What should I say? Well, obviously, I'm about halfway through almost now the Count of Monte Cristo, which is incredibly long. So that is quite an achievement, but it is absolutely terrific. So there is that. Well, I usually just look around me and see if there's any kind of signs of culture that I can sort of pluck. Oh, here we are. There's a Harold Budd collection of ambient music from the 1970s through to near present. So go over that. Yeah, but check that out if you want some sort of very slow, soothing sounds. Danny won't know what's going on here. He doesn't need that level of calm in his life, whereas I need persistent calm to make me
music.
feel like. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Very classy elevator music, but elevator music nonetheless.
Yeah, well said, Trash. Wait, drinking doesn't count as a hobby. Yeah, it is. It's too much of a hobby at the moment.
I was trying to think if there's been any good sort of film or television recommendations lately, but I don't know. I've actually been watching an old sort of crime series called Killing Kind, where Colin Morgan of Merlin fame, if anyone remembers him from back in the day, he's a sort of slightly psychopathic type in that series. So that's on Netflix. That's sort of mention. I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but nothing springs to mind. Good. Well, we should let you go and enjoy your meal. What kind of restaurant is it? Italian, Spanish?
Just before I forget, Psycho said, would I bench him if I had KDH as well or Anderson? I'd have to think about it, Psycho, but I can't see myself benching KDH. I'd probably play him and bench Anderson. He's just
who's he even playing?
Bournemouth away, which I think there'll be chances there. I don't know. I think I'd play KDH. There's too many avenues there for him. I have to think about it. Yeah, I'm going to a nice Spanish tapas restaurant, actually. Really nice. So
lovely.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we hope you enjoy your patatas bravas or your
no, not patatas bravas. That's a waste.
Or
stomach fillers.
What's the? I'm trying to think now of the different no, because I think I'll
have some tortilla and some boccheronis and some chilies and some all sorts of some.
We had, by the way, I think in Madrid once we had a terrible food poisoning incident when it came to like going to one of those Spanish bars where they serve you the tortilla properly, where it's still really running and gooey in the middle, and there's you can basically see the egg white still move. Which is dangerous if you've got stomach issues. But yeah, that wasn't fun. But never mind. Well, we should leave it there and let people enjoy things. Remember to smash likes and subscribes, sign up to various things, Patreon, blah, blah, blah. And we hope to see you over there if you're interested in a bit more. But yeah, otherwise, enjoy Game Week 2, and we'll see you back here for lots of chip chat for Game Week 3.
Nice one.
See you soon.